Well, welcome everyone to the special Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, October 29th. If you'd all please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I just like to first make notice that we met in executive session just prior to this meeting, and all the commissioners you see seated here were present, and Mr. Nagel was not with us this evening, and neither was Commissioner Clark. I just wanted to say quickly, in light of all of the events over the weekend, I'd first like to thank our township staff and our police department who were ready and responsive to some concerns brought forth by some of our groups here in the Radnor community who were feeling a little vulnerable, and they were right on it, very responsive, and I'd like to thank them and our staff. I was getting emails on Saturday evening, the Board of Commissioners were, as they were working to work with the groups to help allay any fears and make them feel more secure. So I would just like to thank our police department and our staff for their work with that. And also I think echo everyone in the community to say that it was a tough couple days for our country. So I hope that we can all move forward and keep in our thoughts and prayers all the people that impacted over the weekend. So with that, public participation. So please, Ken. And welcome. Does everyone have a seat? Who wants a seat? Okay, good.
Good evening. I'm Ann Minicozy, 129 Radnor Avenue, Villanova, and I came tonight to thank all the commissioners and our township manager, Mr. Zinkowski, for your support and your continued support of the community breakfast of the Mainline Undoing Racism Day, Embracing the Difference. This year was our 8th event breakfast held at Villanova University, co-sponsored by the NAACP Mainline branch, and the program was a seat at the table practicing cross-cultural effectiveness. And so we had a conversation. About 180 people were in attendance, including some of our commissioners, and President Borowski led us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. And so I just came tonight to say thank you very much for your continued support. I really appreciate it very much. Next year we'll have our 9th community breakfast, and it will be same time of the year, September 18th, 2019, again at Villanova University, and our steering committee is developing the program now so that it will be interactive, educational, and we continue to work on fostering dialogue in the community and networking among many, many different groups: civic, educational, religious, the police, maybe some firefighters next year. So we continue to reach out. My email is anne.minicozy, MINICOZZI @villanova.edu. If you have suggestions for the program, if you'd like to be on the email list to receive announcements about upcoming events from all of the different organizations that are connected with us, you can just reach out to me, and I very much welcome that. So thank you very much for the support. I appreciate it.
It was a great event, and the students from Radnor Elementary were phenomenal. Any other public comment? Okay. Appointments to various boards and commissions. We are going to table that for this evening, so we will deal with that at our next full board meeting. Budget request presentations by community groups and township boards. Mr. Wade, do you want to kick this off, Mr. Zinkowski?
You actually have the list there, a random draw, so
all right,
I will
so
let you have
call
the
everyone up.
privilege of calling up each group there. So
Well,
it was a random draw, so as it came out, you may like it because you're up front, or you may not like it because you're at the back side.
All right, well, first, thank you all for being here. Thank you to all the groups who work so hard on behalf of our community. I know you guys, everyone here contributes so much, and So the first group who won the draw is the Shade Tree Commission. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
yay!
And to collect this award, I have nearly just 100 slides, not to worry.
Could you just introduce yourself
I
and
will. Let me just see. This isn't my laptop, so let me just see.
Upper left corner, there you go. Go ahead and, there's an icon in the upper
Let me
left.
do this. So my name is Eileen Brett, and here I am the chair of the Shade Tree Commission. First year as chair, so I appreciate your patience. First time in front of the BOC, first time that we have a budget. So there's a lot of firsts tonight. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so the plan is to basically give you a holistic look at our budget. This is, as I mentioned, the first time that we're giving you a budget, so even to do so, we're going to give you a look at where we are, where we've been, and then where we're going. So basically, actually a 5-year plan so that you can actually make a decision about 2019. It will have some context for you. Okay, to start off with 2019, where are we? To date, we have removed over 500 trees. So basically, we're tracking to 600 for the year. And when you look at that, you can basically put trees into 4 different categories. And that's basically what's shown left to right. So the first 2 are basically hazardous trees. The first column in blue are those removed by the township under our public works budget. So a little bit over 100 this year. The next column in yellow are those removed by residents. And the whole key behind the hazardous trees is, 1, they're typically large. They're typically your big heritage trees, 30 inches in diameter or larger. And 2, they require no replacement per our ordinance because they're hazardous. The third and fourth column are those trees that are healthy and are removed because maybe a resident is doing an expansion of their house, maybe they've decided to redo their landscaping. So if they remove more than 6 trees per year, they come to us and ask permission. That's the bright green column. For all of those, they do a replacement based on a certain formula. Okay? So we feel good about that column in green. May not have the same tree canopy, but they are indeed being replaced. Then you have the orange column. So this is if a resident or a business removes less than 6 per year, they don't need to come to us. So we made a very conservative estimate that on average, maybe 10 trees are removed a month. Okay? So all in all, where we're going to concentrate on are those trees that are in our control, those that are in the right of way, which would be the blue column. Okay. So there's a lot of other tree loss, but we're not going to talk about that because that's outside of our control. Jake?
I mean, on that slide, do you think we're replacing the number of trees that we're taking down? So is that green column
No.
making up for all the other columns?
No. No, because even if we do the math, for some of the large heritage trees, we would be replacing them with 6, but for all the smaller trees, it's a 1-for-1 replacement. Yep. And also, Jake, good question. The hazardous trees, the 2 on the left, make up more than 50% of the trees. We know they're large and we know they're not being replaced. So overall, no, we would say a net loss.
Net loss.
No, and that's actually where we're going. If you look at the right of way, let's narrow our focus. Okay, so let's look at just the right of way. Okay. So the dark blue is exactly what we were just talking about in the previous slide. If you look at 2018, those are the 100+ trees that were removed, hazardous trees. The yellow is what we plant each year. And this is courtesy of Chanticleer. They actually give us a donation, and then we as a township plant trees. For instance, we're planting 38 trees this year. Okay? And you can see they vary throughout the years, but you can tell the trees that we remove every year greatly outweigh those trees that we plant. So this is what it looks like. This is what I call the do nothing slide. If we do nothing, this is where we're going to be. Okay. So 2014 to 2018 are actuals. That's what it really looks like. So let's now look 5 years ahead. Let's assume we plant the same number of trees per year, 38, actually the maximum number of trees we have planted per year in the last 5 years. Let's assume we're at the max going forward. For hazardous trees, let's just assume it's a rolling 5-year average. Okay? If we stay on this course, in 5 years, we're going to have a net loss of 500+ trees. Okay? And that's what we can quantify. The tree canopy loss will be so much more, but we don't have metrics on it, so we won't talk about it in those terms. We'll just talk about it simply in lost trees.
That collective loss is only in the right-of-ways?
Correct. Yep.
And that doesn't include trees taken down by PICO and things like that. That's only trees that we as a township take down.
Correct. Yep. So, what is our vision? Now we start actually looking forward, okay? So our vision is basically to serve our residents and serve our businesses, okay? It's to lead with the carrot, not lead with the stick, okay? So this is a change for us. We've typically been enforcement, looking at what people are doing and then giving them guidance on that and either approving or disapproving their drawings. We'd like to be so much more than that. And that's why you see this piece on the right is our first communications piece. And our lead communications person is actually here, Jenny. Yep, she's done a great job for us, okay? But we want to start educating residents, hey, we're here and we're here to help you, okay? If you have a construction project and you want to save that big old beautiful tree, come talk to us, we'll tell you how to do so. If you want to add an addition and you need to take down some trees, we'll tell you how to do that as well. We'll connect you with licensed contractors who can safely remove these trees. If you want to invest in new landscaping, we'll help you with that. We have a recommended tree list, and those that thrive in this area, even with the global warming, whether you believe in that or not, there are statistics out there that say that we are going to see a delta in our temperatures, and therefore you don't want to be planting trees that typically thrive maybe in the Northeast. So we have that factored in. And then you go to the big reason of, well, why even care? You know, why should we even care about trees? And you can see the benefits listed there in the middle, and I'll just touch upon a few. So stormwater management, think of those big heritage trees. They soak up tons of water. That can help us reduce our stormwater management bill. And the one I always like best is reducing the blood pressure and stress levels. They actually have studies out there that if you drive down a tree-lined street, you actually drive more slowly, which is great for neighborhoods with kids. Great for our walkable downtown, just neighbors out walking their dogs. So these are just some of the reasons why we want to keep our tree canopy. Okay, so in coming up with a budget, the first thing we have to do is just say, well, what is our criteria? What's important? What are we going to prioritize? So right off the bat, resident safety is number one, and keeping the lights on. So what that means in action is, we need to remove the hazardous trees. We need to remove those trees that are in severe decline. And that may sound obvious, but it's a lot of budget money, and so we'll get into the details on that. Next, we actually want to start regreening. You know, our trees, that would be first along the right-of-way streets, and then second would be the parks. Okay, let's get to the digits. So, thank you to the township. They purchased our first software, Urban Forest Matrix. That's why we're able to come here today to you with a budget, because we actually have data, we actually have metrics. So far, we have surveyed about 50% of Radnor Township. And this is the right of way, so going about 10 feet into residents' property, and this is just streets, no parks yet. So 2,200 trees. Good news is 50% of them, that big orange piece of the pie, healthy. That's great. The green piece of the pie are those trees that are under or in wires, healthy, but okay. The area you want to be concerned with is that piece of the pie, those three colors that are basically noon to 2 o'clock. All of those require action. Okay? So you've got 30 ash trees, small number of ash trees, but either we need to treat them or they're going to decline and become hazardous. So we need to take some action. Then you've got 46 trees that are just hazardous. They need to come down, or they're going to probably end up coming down in one of the storms. Then you've got the big yellow slice, 268, and those are the trees that are in severe decline. And this is just half of Radnor Township done. By next year, 2019, this time, we should have all of Radnor done, and we would expect these numbers to double.
So we actually invested in the second tablet, so there could be two teams out there surveying the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob, thanks for doing that, immediately so we can get out there. Are we done surveying for the season because the leaves are going to start falling?
We have until the end of November, but we're almost there.
Okay.
And what part of the township is it? What parts of the township have you surveyed at this point?
So Matt Golis and his wife actually led this team. They concentrated on this summer doing streets that are typically busy during the school season, not busy during the summer.
Okay.
So those areas were done, and then from there they basically worked their way from the center out. So just some qualitative feedback is South Wayne looks like it's in great shape. Trees look really good there. Yep. Garrett Hill, not so much. Everything else in between.
So this is pretty much, you've done a good look township-wide at this point. It's not just like certain areas.
No.
Okay.
I have just one question. So with the spotted lantern fly, have you adjusted your projections based upon if there is a fairly large infestation of declining trees?
No, we have not. We have emerald ash borer in there, and we have the spotted lanternfly on our website. We're putting up a link to educate folks on what to do, but no, they're not in these numbers.
Do you think that there could be a mass decline because of the infestation of that species?
Not that I've heard, but I probably need to bring that back to the committee so we can talk about that. But that hasn't been raised so far. Budget. Now we go from trees to dollars. Okay, so just to try and educate folks, this is the budget now looking back 2018 and prior. So just to help educate you on what are the line items in here, and I've got Bill right here as my expert in case I need any help. So interest, self-explanatory. Donations, contributions, this is from Chanticleer. Fees and fines are for, let's say, residents or businesses where they either, one, can't literally plant the number of compensatory required trees on their property. Maybe they don't have enough room. So in lieu of that, they can pay $500 per tree, and that goes into this fund. Or a fine if a contractor is used and they're not licensed. But in general, not a big source of income. Transfers from the general fund, that is transfers coming from you. And then expenditures, you have the big tree planting. That's what's going on actually right now. This is predominantly based on the donations from Chanticleer. And this is where I was showing you the yellow bars where we plant 38 trees per year. Then you have the street tree planting, and that big $83,000 number in 2018, that is the Wayne Business District project. So it's shown here, but we don't really have responsibility for that project. That's governed elsewhere. Park tree replacement is just a few trees here or there. And contractual services is John Hosbach, who we hire part-time, and we'd like to look at him being full-time, not just for here, but holistically for the township. In general, I'd say the big thing to take away from here, look at the ending cash balance. So basically, we've got money, but it hasn't really been used. So I think that's also why when you look at transfers in 2016, 2017, you see zero. Why transfer to a fund if they're not using the money, right? So now we have a proposal of how to use the money. Okay, so this is our proposal. This is our 5-year plan. Okay. Everything in black is what I just showed you on the previous slide. Everything in green is a new line of revenue. Everything in red is a new expenditure. So we'll start with the green, grant donations. We want to go out and actively pursue grants. Now the good news is, for the most part, we don't need your permission. We can do that, and then we can look to grow that. What we would ask, though, is that you match dollar for dollar any grant dollar that we raise or any donation that we raise. So that would predominantly be Chanticleer and these grants. Then we are asking for a one-time transfer of $1 million. We may as well just get that right out there. Okay, and you can see the 5-year plan, what that looks like, the transfer one time. So the good news is 2019 is the big year, and then it goes down from there. So you may ask yourself, well, what are you going to spend that $1 million on? And the $1 million, 800,000 of it will be spent removing hazardous trees and trees in severe decline. So if we want to keep residents safe, if we want to keep the lights on, if we want to prevent residents and businesses from removing healthy trees because they've had bad experiences with hazardous trees falling on their house, falling on wires, then this is a great investment. Okay. So that brings us down to the red. Okay. And you see tree removal, and you basically see it in 3 categories: hazardous, severe decline, and healthy ash. So this is basically the dollars to take down these trees. Okay? And it seems about $3,000 per tree. Okay. Then you see vine removal on trees in parks, a very nominal amount. We would also look to do that through volunteers, which we've done this year. And then you see the street tree planting. So the good news is it costs a lot less money to plant a tree than it does to take down a tree. Okay, so only $650 to plant a new tree. It won't have the same tree canopy, but at least it is a start. So we are proposing a 1-for-1. For every hazardous tree we take down, we put up 1 new tree. Now, to kind of soften that burden, at least we spread that out over 4 years. So basically it comes out to be 100 trees per year for the next 4 years.
One question.
Yes?
How do you get the $650 per tree to plant?
That's what we're currently using.
Is that a big tree? That must be a big tree.
It's a good sized tree. It's currently what we're using for the fall tree planting. So it's a very accurate quote. It's what we've used for the last couple of years for the 38 trees that we plant in the fall.
Can you break
So
that
it's
down?
the tree.
How does it break down?
I would have to check, but it's the tree plus it's the planting.
Commissioner,
And then it's assumed that the neighbor or the resident takes care of the maintenance and the watering.
Commissioner, if I may, so we put out we get proposals for that, and at that rate, that's also at a prevailing wage rate. So that's that's installation, hauling away any soil, providing the tree, installing the tree, mulch, staking, whatever's needed, and again, that's at prevailing wages, and they also have to provide us with a certain amount of bonds. So that's all wrapped up in that unit price.
These aren't the small whips. These are fairly
2.5-inch caliber.
Yeah. Maybe about 10 feet tall or so.
That's not what you would pick up at the Home Depot in the fruit section.
No, no. Thank you. Good point. Yeah. But certainly, if we did something like this, it would go out as a competitive bid, and if we could find the same quality of trees for less money, we would absolutely do so, because at the end of the day, we're dying to plant more trees. So we're incented to do so.
So, and you're only going to plant, these trees only get planted in places where you have residents who are willing to take care of them and help with the maintenance and that kind of thing.
Lisa, that is a big part of it, and it's something we learned actually from New York City, where they did their 1 million tree planting project, and they said that was one of their big lessons learned, is that they should have gotten buy-in from the neighbors ahead of time as to where those trees were going to go. They assumed everybody would be happy to have a tree, not necessarily the case. And in our budget, we don't have maintenance anywhere. So we need the buy-in of our residents or the businesses to take care of these trees. And we currently have that with our fall tree planting, so we would look to continue that. And what may help is to see this same budget, but now it's no longer in dollars, it's in trees. So the negative number is showing trees coming out, and the positive obviously showing trees going in. So at the end of the day, and this is the second to last slide, I think, so we're almost there, this is doing something. So the complete opposite of doing nothing. This is where we would predict that we would end up if we decide to implement this plan. So the blue line shows you the ebbs and flows of each year. The yellow line shows the overall impact to Radnor Township. Okay, so you can see, yes, we hit a bottom peak around 2018, 2019, but then we edge our way back up to 2023, where at least we're slightly positive in the number of trees that we have lost or gained. So again, I'll just state that our ask is basically for $1 million. It's actually $1,050,000. But $1 million and $800,000 of that would go towards the removal of hazardous trees. And one thing I should note, this is a holistic budget. So we don't care if you put it in our budget, if you put it in Public Works, if you put it in some other budget. We just tried to give you a whole picture on trees. It doesn't mean it all has to land in our area of responsibility. And lastly, this is your proud tree committee. We have a lot of good talent here. Forestry degrees, certified arborists, people from planning, people from Parks and Rec. So we ask that you take advantage of us. We're free talent, and we are happy to serve. So, any other questions?
Maybe one thing I can point out to the board, this has nothing to do with the PennDOT right-of-way. So we are not even addressing all the issues of the trees with PennDOT under their authority or control, which ultimately comes back to us to subsidize PennDOT. So this does not include any PennDOT trees that we know will get tangled in wires that are on major grids, that somehow we have to get PennDOT engaged. Because if not, we've been taking down those trees. We've been subsidizing PennDOT to their budget.
Eileen, does anyone have any questions for Eileen?
Well,
Okay.
I do. What do we how many trees do we estimate are in the right of way in Radnor Township?
The ones that we surveyed, Jake, we have 2,200 surveyed. So if we double that, 4,400. And in this model, we assume 75% of them are in the right of way. So maybe about 3,600 or so, 3,400.
And then also, this does not include the sidewalks that we're going to have to replace, that all blew up the sidewalks that we're going to have to go back in after the trees come down to put the sidewalks back in, because that's on us.
Right.
Bob, do you agree that a lot of these problems are because in the past they put the wrong trees in these areas?
That's part of it. That's a big part of it. The other part of it is, like on the sidewalk part, there was never any maintenance program to be able to take care of the trees or to provide long-term health or life to it. So I think it's kind of a...
So if we go forward and we do something in this area, we're going to have that in place. So you're not coming before a future board saying this board made mistakes, put the wrong trees in, didn't maintain.
Jake, that's absolutely correct. So thank you for hitting upon that. 2 points of input. So one, we have a recommended tree list of trees that will thrive in this area, complete with pictures, et cetera, that we predominantly use for residents and businesses. Second, via the survey, we can tell you quantitatively which trees do well. On street trees, like let's say like the downtown Wayne business area, which trees do well out in, less populated areas. So we have that, and we have which trees do not do well and are in decline. So we would very much look to pick trees that will thrive here and be healthy, and then educating our residents. Because, to Bob's point about the sidewalks, you can have a tree that won't grow shallow roots, but if you don't water it, then it will grow shallow roots. So you need deep watering, and it doesn't need to be every day. So we can set residents and businesses up for success.
Anyone else? Eileen, thank you very much. It was very comprehensive, and you guys are doing a great job with the surveys that you conducted.
Okay.
It's good
Great.
to have the information.
Thank you. And Steve has handouts for you that you can take with you, or if you want to reference later.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
This is impressive, Eileen.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a very good team. And I should just mention Matt Golis led up the survey, which is where we got all this great data.
Thank you. Okay. Next is Wayne Senior Center.
Good evening. My name is Sue Parker, and I'm the president of the board of the Wayne Senior Center. Unfortunately, Susan Shapiro, who's the executive director, was well under the weather, and all should be happy that she's not here tonight for that reason. But I wish her well, and I hope she's feeling a lot better. First of all, I want to thank you for your continued support of the Wayne Senior Center. I've been on the board since 2005, and I've been president a little too long. But I happen to be a geriatric care manager, and we have a fine board. And the board, as you know, the building we're in is your building, and I think we have proven that we are good stewards to the building. We have, we're always grateful for what you contribute to our center, and we have been able to use grants and other areas that have been able to contribute to us. And so we're very excited that in the last year we've been able to make our kitchen usable in terms of having someone to come in to cook. So we're now certified to have cook. In fact, is Chris Todd? Yes. So Chris, so one of the grants from the Department of Aging, Pennsylvania Department of Aging, we put in for a grant, and we are able to, we're doing a series of chef tables. And Chris gave the first one. We had 50 people. He did a wonderful demonstration. And so it just opens up a lot of things for our programming. We get about 50 people a day in the center doing different things. Our staff, we just went through a change in our staff. We have 1 full-time staff and 4 part-time staff. Susan works 4 days a week now. Our program director, Katie Mahan, is a full-time, and then we had one gal that was there and she left, and we replaced her with 2, so we have 2 people that are helping with the programming, because it helps to split up the day. We have people that come in early. I know a lot of people are surprised that there are people in Wayne that might need food, but we are finding more and more people in need, and we have people that can't even afford the $2 for lunch. So everything that, if someone comes in our doors, our costs are very minimal as it is, but no one's ever denied anything due to the cost of any of our programs. We think that we consider ourselves a home away from home. I have instituted for my board meeting that a story is told every time we have a board meeting, because a lot of us aren't in the center and you really don't pick up the stories. And we had a board meeting this past week, and in my work I know what we do. I know how important it is. If anybody's read anything lately sociologically about loneliness and as we age, and how loneliness can affect your health and make you sick if you don't have that whole, I mean, in England they have a whole cabinet for loneliness, and I think that the center proves that. But this past year we had an independent researcher come in and did an evaluation of the center. And I just want to read a couple things that came away from the members that they interviewed. And the result was: warm and welcoming, a place to find camaraderie and friendship, a palatable sense of belonging. The human element of the center is valued and most impactful. And this story I'll just relate very quickly is, and this is fairly common, where people here in our community, their mother or father come to live with them. And where do you find a friend, you know? Where do all of us find a friend? You know, you go to college if you're lucky, you meet people. Then if you have children, you might meet people in that. But then kids grow up, or you're working, where do you find your friends? And so as you get older, and I'm not young, you know, you start to lose people. And I'm looking at this audience, and I'm sure all of you know someone that all of a sudden something happened to them. And so, anyway, so this woman came and was living with her daughter, and the daughter comes, and she brings her to the center every day, and the woman was not doing well at all. Now she comes home, she has her stories about her friends from the senior center. It's completely turned her around, and it was affecting her health. She's doing so much better in so many areas. We have many, many stories like this that that we're able to be a place where people are engaged, they meet people. My mom lived with me the last 7 years of her life. I mean, she's been gone 10 years now, but when she moved in with us, she went to the senior center, and I'll never forget, she says, you know, Sue, they were my acquaintances, and they became my friends. And this is really what happens, and we are kind of a step, we keep people healthy, and it's a huge resource. And we're needing more and more social work types of things that are happening in this community. There's all kinds of stories that are coming up. We have put out a grant. We did get a grant. Susan writes grants, but I also got another grant writer because we really want a social worker. We're seeing this more and more, and the staff is doing as much as they can, but that's one of the things that we want to grow, and there are lots of needs with that. We're always doing new things, new programs. We're trying Sundays at the center. There was a health literacy grant program that we did with our volunteers that go out, and that has been very successful. We even do valet parking because, you know, trying to park in Wayne is not the easiest. So lunchtime at Wayne is, as you know, but we do have valet parking. It's only $2. But, you know, it's, you know, we're trying everything to keep our, you know, not to get, our doors are open, but to make it easy, and we're getting new people all the time. The staff is just incredible, compassionate, warm. I went in today because I didn't know I was going to do this tonight. And I went in, and we have a woman who is legally blind, and when she retired, she just found that the center has been her life, and she's just such a lovely woman. And I walk in, and they say, Sue, look what we just found, and there was an app, and the woman, so they put the app on her iPad, and it's an app where you can, if you're having problem she couldn't read the newsletter. She was having trouble because of the print, and she was able on this app to call someone. The person could, there was it was a FaceTime, and she was able to show the woman what she wanted, and the woman read it to her. I mean, so we're trying to do everything. We're using technology, everything. So if you have any specific, I know I'm kind of rambling, but I definitely have a passion. I have been there since 2005. I met Bob Fitzgerald. I don't know if any of you remember him. He was my swim coach at Martin Stam, and I ran into him, and he was telling me what he did, and I go, oh, you know, I know what a difference senior centers make to people in their lives. And he said, oh, Sue, why don't you come by, let me talk. And I came over, I went to the board meeting, and 2 months later, I was the secretary, and it's just been that way since. So we really do great things. We have all kinds of events. You should come to we had a spaghetti dinner last year, and what I love what's happened with, we had tried to do all kinds of events, and I made a decision that most of our events would be coordinated with what happens at Radnor Township. So about 3 years ago, we started with the tree lighting. And last year, so the board all makes homemade Christmas cookies. We do hot chocolate, and of course we have a bathroom, which is really, everybody loves. We have a board member who has a train set, so that he puts that up over our pool table, and that's there for about a month. And so the first year probably was 200. The second year we were guessing like 300. Last year I got a counter on one of our board members. It was 750 people came through our doors on the open house night. I mean, and our staff is, I mean, and that was one of the things that came out with the evaluation is the staff. They just are so open to everybody, and you feel immediately, you know, accepted, and it's an okay place to come. So please come if you come to and there's always a bathroom. In fact, I wasn't going to tell this story, but I told my husband tonight, I said, I don't know if I should tell this story. Anyway, but I'm going to tell it because you've already heard me talk for a little bit. And so last week, I was at I still work, but I have this other job that, you know. So I was there, and Susan and I had a meeting, and then I had the board meeting, so there was time in between. And it was like trains come in at the train station, and this man came running into the into the senior center and said, "Can we use your bathroom? Can I use your bathroom?" And I go, "Oh, sure, sure, sure." And I looked at Susan, I said, "I'm gonna give him this." So he came out of the bathroom and I said, "Do you live in Wayne?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Here, read about us." Because we need the word to be spread of what the senior center does. It's not, we have people that think we have just people in wheelchairs and I'm thinking, we have writers, there's so much going on there. So if you can add any more to our budget, we would be more than appreciative. And thank you for your time. And do you have any questions for me? Thank you so
Sue,
much.
thank you very much.
Thank
You for the work you do. Really.
I would like to say, if I may, that they do a tremendous job in supporting the township, the police department, whenever there is a need in the community. They're a phone call away, and we appreciate the assistance that you give to us.
And the spaghetti dinner was amazing.
It was.
Jack and I were.
Yeah, and you know what? April 7th, save the date,
All right.
April 7th.
We'll be there. That's great. Everyone should go. Okay, next, Radnor Memorial Library. Annie.
All right, jackpot. Good evening. My name is Annie Leslie. I'm the Executive Director at the Radnor Memorial Library. Thank you, as always, for all the work that you do here in the Township and your assistance with the library. As you know, the library is the destination of discovery for Radnor Township. And now that we are back in our building on West Wayne Avenue, we are open 72 hours a week. We have a few hundred visitors a day, 12,000 registered card holders. And we have programs and collections and services for everyone in the township. Our physical collection is about 125,000 items. It did not get smaller in our building. It's just configured differently, I promise. Same amount of items. And we, in a typical year, when we're working at full capacity, we check out between 150 and 200,000 items. And then we also have a digital collection with more than 30,000 titles, books and audiobooks that you can download directly to your devices, and more than 500,000 streaming titles available through our service, Hoopla. And that has about 30,000 checkouts a year in recent years. We also offer about 500 programs a year for babies through adults, and about 18,000 people attend those programs in the average year. We have desktop and Chromebook computers that you can use while you're in the library. And one of the things we wanted to make sure we did in our renovation was have a really robust Wi-Fi system, because that's really what's booming for us. People come in with their laptop and their phone and various other devices. So at any given moment, we have a lot of devices connected. So that was a really great update in the building project. We also have meeting rooms for community groups and individuals, as many of you have taken advantage of. We have a museum pass program where you can check out passes for local attractions like the Elmwood Park Zoo. We have the Mutter Museum, Morris Arboretum, the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania, and Grounds for Sculpture, so all kinds of places. And we also offer a service that we call At Home for our patrons who aren't able to physically get into the library. We can help deliver books and other materials out to you. One of the things that we are really proud of, and we continue to grow during our time out of our building, were our community partnerships. We were forced to be creative during the time that we were not on West Wayne Avenue. So that was interesting, but also a nice challenge. So we worked with many community groups that I see here, like Wayne Senior Center, the Historical Society, the Garden Club, Chanticleer, Wayne Business Association, the school district. And these partnerships have been invaluable for us to help get our services out into the community and to showcase some of the great things that we have going on here in the township. So our operating budget, looking towards 2019, will be about $1.4 million. That's, in line with what it has been when we've worked in our full operations. So we are asking for a 3% increase in the contribution from the township over last year's contribution. Or I should say this year. So 2018 was about $930,000. So we are asking for $957,000, which was what was in the initial proposed budget from the manager. I don't know where things stand now, but that's what we're hoping for. The township's contribution typically has been about 65 to 70% of the library's operating budget. The additional money to make up our income comes from an endowment that the library has, fundraising and grants from groups like the Friends of the Library and Chanticleer and other local organizations. We also do our annual Elves for the Shells 5K, December 1st this year, and other events throughout the year, and our library activities. Now, that's things like fines and your copying. That's only about 2% of the budget, but that does help out. Our major expenses, like most businesses, are our people. So our salaries and related costs, and then our collections, our programs, and our building expenses. With our brand new building, we are still learning what our utility costs look like, and the maintenance costs and those sorts of things. So we are looking forward to our more energy efficient building, saving us money on heating and cooling and electricity, but we're not really sure how that's all gonna wash out until we get through a few more seasons. So we're really looking forward to 2019 being our first year really back in full force for the whole year on West Wayne Avenue, and able to offer all of our programs and services for the full year. Our board is about to embark on a strategic planning process in 2019 to help guide us over the next few years. So I think it's going to be a really exciting year. Can I answer any questions?
You said you were looking for a 3% increase, and then I had to dive into the numbers to try and find where the actual, what's the dollar figure that you're looking for?
$957,500.
$957,500.
Yeah.
I like the way you rounded that down. Just what my wife does.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you very much. Chris, Wayne Business Association.
Hello, everyone, commissioners. Thanks for having us. It's our first time doing this, so might be a little rusty. I don't want to take too much time, but in front of you, I emailed you today. Lots of time for you to review, about an hour and a half. Should be right. Wayne Business Overlay District Impact Study. Okay, we worked with this. The township provided some money as well. This one sheet, or I'm sorry, this one little booklet you have, and I do have a unstapled version for you. I'll pass that on the way out. But this says a lot. This shows a lot that you can bring to the residents. One thing we wanted to make sure with asking for all the money that we're going to be asking for to improve the Wayne Overlay, the Wayne Business, the WBOD, is that we're not just asking for residents' tax dollars. I mean, there's a huge swath of business tax dollars that come to that we use. The WBOD, which is less than 1% of the area of the Radnor Township. I mean, it's got to be less than a square mile. Maybe give or take, right? is a $281 million economic engine, and that's what we produce a year out of that little area. Okay. We attest for about 5% of the employees in Radnor, 8% of sales in 2017, 34% of retail businesses are in the WBOD, as well as 42% of the restaurants. A number I think might be too high, but anyway, that's me talking personally. Okay, that's a big number. Okay, we make a lot of money. $1.2 million, I believe, came in. Mercantile tax came in 2017. Okay, and what we're asking for, and that doesn't even include property tax that the property owners are paying. So, in the upcoming months, I know Steve, look, we've come to you in the past 2 years. We had a little history as we had the electrical issue on North Wayne Avenue, which was a growing situation the years beforehand. People came in and they fixed it. They did a great job. Okay, now if the power does go out, it's out for 10 seconds tops. What they did works. Okay, gas finally came through and fixed that this year. So now we have a new gas main. I mean, I'm not one that's going to complain about infrastructure improvements, especially with utilities. We're lucky to get it. Okay, now things are working right. We need to really address how the BOD looks from a safety standpoint. From just we're the original town center on the main line. We have to fight against King of Prussia, new town centers, free parking up and down the main line. They keep opening every day, but we do it. I mean, what this study shows is that even though I think 2016 there was a big dip in tax revenue, remember the mercantile tax is about gross sales. So reinvesting in your business district will only help you in the long run. Okay, and again, that also shows how much business tax really comes into the township. We don't want to take money away from the Shade Tree Commission, from the senior center. And by the way, if you can go, you should go to one of the lunches they have now. The last guy that did it was great. It was sold out. I still have people complimenting. And it really made everybody's day, which is nice. Plus, the kitchen's really, I think I need their architect for the restaurant. And working with the Shade Tree Commission with the trees, honestly, I wrote it down. What was it? When you drive down a shaded street with trees, you're less stressed. Well, whenever I drive through the WBAD, I'm totally stressed. Totally stressed. Okay. I know that they're repaving PECO's repaving, or PennDOT is repaving the street right now on North Wayne Avenue, but just what they repaired. Because it took so long to do that project, they canceled the repaving the entire street. So now our street, at the end of the day, the one main thing we're looking for was that beautiful new tree-lined, well-paved street, and now it's like it's been under construction for 3 years, which it has. So I know there's money in the budget already. We talked about a year ago or something. It's about $178,000. I think $83,000 of that is in the Shade Tree budget. A little more left over to help with the planners, not the planners, but the grates and the costs of repairing the sidewalk and everything. But at some point, all of this is just patchwork. And I know Steve Norsini has been working hard, and he has a budget, which I believe you're proposing tonight.
No, so I'll just jump in. So there was the streetscape project, and on the manager's board, I think you'll see over there, in the past, I don't know if they're still there, but manager and staff have been looking at Wayne and thought, with their competition and the economic driver that they are, the street tree project that was proposed was minimal at best, when really what it needs is a true streetscape project with curbing, sidewalks, trees. That's their competition, that's media, that's Westchester, that's what everybody's done over the years. So in the next version of the budget, we will make a request for money to have that study done, to end up with bidding documents. based on stakeholder meetings, WBOD, WBA meetings, commissioners meetings, and ultimately a construction contract to be led from that. And their budget number for the design, $390, budget number for the construction, $2.6 million. That's an estimate from Thomas Committa, who did this work several years ago for the WBA streetscape, and he's well known. Go to RFP, but that's just to let the board know the magnitude of what we're talking about. Well needed, sorely needed.
I've been in enough of these meetings lately that I have no problem and full confidence in asking for that, especially because I know that what you're fixing could pay it back very fast. Okay? So it is very important. It's the #1 complaint. I don't hear complaints about parking anymore, or anything like that. It's the, and by the way, and trash, thank you for the new trash cans. They're all by the, if you haven't noticed, they're all by the kiosks. And what was it, 11 new trash cans? It does make a huge difference, okay? But honestly, that's the #1. The curbs, streetscape, treescapes, everything. So hopefully we work together in the next 6 months to get this done. Right, Steve? 6 months? That's how it takes, right? It only took us 2 years to get to this point.
For the design.
For the design, yeah. And move along quickly, because that's really what needs improvement on. Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions for me?
Maybe for Steve, if you're contemplating pulling up the existing sidewalk and replacing it?
Commissioner, so it's all proposed now. It would be, granite curb, consistent sidewalk. So right now there's also, even though there's the WBOD sidewalk requirement with the brick and the sidewalk, beyond that, there's all sorts of sidewalk from when Pico came through and some of the existing blocks. So we're talking curbs, sidewalks, benches, fixtures, trees, appropriate trees, as Brett noted, spaced appropriately that won't block businesses when they mature, lighting, the lights that the WBA has been looking for. So it's pretty comprehensive. And Thomas Committa just gave us a real budget number. My thought would be the board would probably want to go to request for proposals, and that's when we would get the real numbers.
I've worked with him before. He's excellent. If I could make a good idea massively more expensive, is there an opportunity here to improve stormwater management in a district that's high pavement already?
Yes, sir. So one of the upcoming requests for a project is the North Wayne parking lot, which would have a stormwater component, which hopefully would be funded by the O4, the stormwater fund. And so in our budget number, that's a basic budget number to do that. I would recommend that we look at a stormwater component of some sort. I think there's a lot of urban stormwater management practices that could be implemented in Wayne. They're done all over the country. I think it would be a good time for us to do so. That would affect that cost, but I think it would be needed. The main thing of those two numbers is just to show the board possible magnitude of the project.
And I don't think we need another study. I think we know where the water goes, where it runs. Like working with Chris,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to spend any more study. But I think
No.
we know where all the water goes and those corrections where they need to be made at.
Yeah, to be clear, there really should spend $0 on studies, okay? It was hard to get me to do this impact study, all right? Let's just do something. That's the key. Honestly, the WBA, our main goal is to bring people to Wayne. That's what we do. Through our events, I know you're all familiar with the Music Fest that we work in conjunction with Music is Love Foundation. The Radnor Fall Fest, it's the big one. People love it. Thousands of people come to the street. Gloria Clausen from our board in Kids and Cribs here, she actually was the brainchild behind the Wayne Trick or Treat this year, which just, it's crazy how packed the street was and how much candy we all gave out. Rite Aid and CVS and Target, I saw business merchants running out of the store at 5:30 because they thought 2 bags were good. I went through 8 bags, 6 gallons of hot apple cider. It was crazy, and it was down to, I made $6.58. It was perfect. I will say, Weicker came back and took back the candy. She thought she was doing me a favor giving it to me. So, but anyway, and the tree lighting coming up. mean, and as the senior center know, I mean, they do piggyback a lot of those, and we pack the street. So we need to have a nice, clean, safe street, so.
And Chris, we had talked about, I know different tree, but we had talked about getting the existing trees on North Wayne lit. Do you know if the new streetscape project would provide an appropriate electrical so it's not strung from second-story windows?
I would hope it would.
That would be,
So-
all those components, Commissioner, would be part of this, and a lot of that would be brought up in various stakeholder meetings with WBOD, the WBA, what's needed, and then obviously everything would be vetted through the commissioners. And then, so the whole purpose of that would be, of that money would be to come out with bidding documents so that no studies, just this is the work that was decided, approved, all those things, urban stormwater management. And again, so they changed the cost, but that's what was originally brought to us by the WBA, so absolutely that would be included.
And obviously, this is something we want to work in conjunction with the township and even the Radnor Enhancement Trust, the things like the planters. So we 2 years ago, the WBA went out and got a bid to light the trees, and it was through the curb. So that bid is no longer good, okay? But it can be done without disrupting the sidewalk too much.
If you're doing a streetscape sidewalk project and all the sidewalk and curbs being replaced, that's your time.
Yeah.
To pick your new spots and all that.
The other thing is that shoot, I have another point.
Chris has done an outstanding job in a leadership role with the Wayne Business Association. Appreciate working closely with you, the board, all the businesses, because it really is a pleasure, especially when I get a call from you at 1 in the morning. It's always good news that I know Chris is calling me just to say hello. That we have issues that are coming up or on the holiday.
We haven't had any of those calls in a long time.
No, we haven't. We got the power corrected, but
Yeah, power corrected.
it is great to work with them. And I think they see the big picture of the township, the benefits of the township, and that's great. And the Conservancy as well, working with them as part of this project. And it shows all the different groups of people working together, which is great.
And I hope you guys can utilize this. If you're not connected, if your ward is not connected to the WBOD, please feel free to utilize this and remind residents, hey, it's not just your tax dollars that we're giving away. It's actually used to, it's business. Invest money to make money. Okay? Thank you very much.
Chris, thank you very much. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay. Thank you, Chris. Hey, when is that tree lighting? Someone asked me.
November 30th this year.
Okay, all right, that's
Yeah.
a constituent asked me.
Here, I'll just give you that.
Oh, thank you. All right. Radnor Fire Company.
They are en route.
They're en route? Okay, we'll put them. Bryn Mawr Fire Company.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dan Cuff, president of the Bryn Mawr Fire Company. Bryn Mawr Fire Company is the first company to go in about 1/3 of Radnor Township, eastern side of the township. Our average percentage of calls in Radnor Township, overall of our calls, is about 35% per year, not including assist calls. So when Radnor goes in, if we go in as an assist company, that's not included in that. It's not a big number, but 2016, Bryn Mawr Fire Company had 740 total calls, 266 in Radnor Township. Radnor contributed for our operations and capital improvements $119,750 and contributed for our apparatus replacement $66,000. 2017, we had 695 calls total, 261 in Radnor Township. Radnor contributed for operations and capital improvements $119,750 and contributed for our apparatus replacement $66,000. 2018 year-to-date, we've had 187 calls in Radnor Township. Radnor contributed for our operations and capital improvements $122,612 and for our apparatus replacement $66,000. So it's pretty consistent year to year. If we get a CPI increase, that's more than enough for us. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions?
consider a false alarm, I'd ask you that. Unnecessary call,
Right.
over 30% of them are unnecessary.
So
How many of those are residential versus business?
Most of them are residential.
Is there any fee for a?
I think you gotta tighten up your alarm ordinance, what you have to do. And the police ordinance cannot be the same as the fire ordinance.
and there are state laws about how you can fine somebody for their alarms.
You allow 3 free in the state of Pennsylvania, but after that, the resident can be fined.
But it has to be an ordinance in the township. They can't just show up and fine them. It has to be code.
One of our big properties, the problem is home properties down in Rosemont. I've dealt with Kevin and Andy about the whole property, but they are true problem to us with CO alarms. They don't maintain anything on the properties at all.
You said home properties in Devon?
No, it's Rosemont.
Rosemont.
On Conestoga Road.
It's the old Broadlawn Apartments complex.
The one where all the Villanova students live?
Yeah.
The one where all the
Across from
Villanova
Yang
students
Men.
live?
Yeah,
Across from Yang Ming.
a lot of student housing over there.
Yes.
Do you have, are you completely volunteer? Do you have any paid?
We have 3 full-time and 4 part-time engineers.
And then all the rest are volunteer?
All the rest are volunteers, including all the administration.
Has that been a consistent number, or have you seen an increase in the need for paid folks?
No. No, that's been consistent for years and years.
Dan, are you asking for an increase? Or, because I know that we spoke, or I may have spoken with the chief, and I got your list of things that you wanted for the water rescue.
Yeah,
What else?
we've submitted a list to the township for our 1 list for that problem that everybody's having in the township with flooding. And Bob and Chris Flanagan both have it.
Is there anything that the board could do to help with safety of the first responders, or you guys?
I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
I think we get a consistent volunteer basis out for the calls. And I think we're doing a fine job for the township.
How is, you're able to get volunteers, or is that kind of
Well,
like
it
an
depends on the
ongoing?
day, time of night and stuff like that. During the day, it's a little lax. During nighttime, I don't really have a problem.
Okay. Have, in general, signing new recruits up?
We have a real good rapport with Villanova University. They invite us to their job fair, and right now we have 8 guys in training because of that job fair.
Bob, I know we had talked about first responder safety, training, equipment, education. But that was in line with, when I was pushing the idea of using stormwater. Now that we have the direction that we can't use stormwater, and there seems to be agreement that we can open it up and put it as a budget item, can you go back to fire departments and police departments and look at, broaden it, not just water safety, not flood safety, look at first responder safety. So things outside, water, flood safety will be included in that, but if they need stuff for other issues.
We will do that. We just received Radnor Fires this afternoon, their request for information, so we'll be putting that together then and getting it out to the board. And then we'll do the re-ask for that particular one. Bryn Mawr Fire does a tremendous job, and it's a pleasure to work with you.
And you as well.
Every time we call, you guys come.
Appreciate what we do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you
evening.
very much. All right, Women's Resource Center.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Brubaker. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. That's great. Thank you. The Women's Resource Center is often referred to as one of the best kept secrets in Radnor Township. We have been in this house on West Wayne, right across from the library, for about 43 years, and heavily run by volunteers. We come to you today, I think, primarily because we're reaching a point of the word is gradually getting out about our services, and the situations that we're encountering are increasingly complex. And so we are looking to continue to grow our professional staff to supplement our really strong volunteer base. So I just took a look at the mission of Radnor Township and WRC's mission to see where they fit. And I think there is a strong synergy there because our goal is for a woman when she's encountering some kind of unexpected life transition, whether that be loss of a job, whether that be a divorce, whether that be the death of a spouse, that we are there to help them regain their footing, get back to the quality of life that they expect to have. This actually appeared in the Radnor Lifestyle 2 years ago. And this is a group of some of our Radnor resident women. But the reality is there were 5 women back in 1975 who took out an ad in I believe it was called the Wayne Suburban Times paper at that point in time, saying, I think we need a resource center for women, and calling a meeting to see who was interested. And 35 women showed up to that first meeting with an ad in the paper. So 43 years later, here we are. And I brought along our annual report, as you can see, starting on, gosh, I need my glasses, page 6. You can see our list of supporters, everybody from who our key donors are, as well as who our board members are. What I want you to understand about the identity of who we are is that this is very much a homegrown service that's women helping women within Radnor Township that has grown beyond, and now we're actually serving women throughout the 5-county Philadelphia region. I looked a little bit at the statistics, so I gave you my math here so that you can test it for me, but this is from census statistics. So 31,000, almost 32,000 people in Radnor Township, 53% are female. Of those, 12% are over the ages of 65 and women, so that if you do the math, it's 2,040 women over the age of 65. 64% of the population are families, so you can see how many families we have. And 15% of the families are headed by a single mother, which leaves you with 927 single mothers. Now, we don't just work with single mothers, but that is a lot of the women that we work with. And we know, I don't have statistics for Delaware County, but we know in our neighboring county of Chester that 40% of single parent families live below the poverty level. We know of the women who call us that it is 69% of the women who call us either have no income or their income is below $25,000 a year. So when they need to figure out, in many cases, the average age of our caller is 56, which I think surprises people. But it's oftentimes women who have stepped out of the workforce to be able to raise their children and manage the household, and are now trying to figure out how to support themselves. We have a whole team, and as I mentioned, we are heavily volunteer-based. So for quite a few years, even the majority of the services that the Women's Resource Center provided were run by and provided by volunteers. So we still to this day have 40 helpline and program volunteers. We have 34 volunteer and affiliate attorneys. These are local family law attorneys throughout Bucks, Montgomery, and Chester counties. Montgomery, Delaware, and Chester counties. And 23 advisory council members, 27 board and committee members. One of the things about us, again, because this is sort of that grassroots, let's pull everybody in to kind of help with this mission, is that last year we had over $107,000 in donated services. So a lot of that is our attorneys, our legal fees. They're coming out providing pro bono consultation for women who can't afford an attorney, which is an invaluable service for a woman facing divorce unexpectedly. We also have over $20,000 in donated facilities. We've been extremely fortunate that that our neighboring church, Central Baptist Church, has continued to make our space available to us for well below market rate. It's really what it costs them to maintain the space. So, and we also use the Delaware County Bar Association space. We have schools that partner with us for our Girls Leadership Program and so forth. And then finally, you can see our total revenue that was donated. Nearly 98%, 99% of our budget comes from individuals, grants, sponsorships. It's all fundraising dollars. 1% of our funds come from program fees. Last year, we served 218 women in vulnerable circumstances who lived in Radnor Township. Gave us that information. We probably served more than that, but we don't get an address for everyone who calls our helpline. So these are for the women who did give us that information. And I can share a little bit more about our services and so forth, but I think the best way to kind of help you understand what we're trying to do in our role with women in terms of helping them successfully navigate a transition is to just share about 2 minutes of a brief video that I have that is actually of a woman who is a Radnor resident. Assuming I can get my video.
So well, after all. Now it's pretty much on my own. You just want to feed your kids, play with your kids. And
we're going to just restart that so you can
Sorry
actually
about
hear it
that.
at the beginning.
It's just like at home. You know, when you need the remote, it's not where it's supposed
I was married with 5 kids, mostly a normal relationship, but in the last 3 years, my husband was doing all these drugs and alcohol, lots of cocaine. He was starting to affect the children, so he had to go. That was the end of that. So I had to throw him out and keep all 5 kids, his 2 kids and my 3. I don't know where to turn to. I didn't have a job. I wasn't in school yet. God, it was so long ago. I was complaining to a female friend of mine, just complaining about everything. She says, I know where you need to go. You need to go to the Women's Resource Center. Next thing I know, I was in a group of women who all had it pretty bad, too. So it's like the first step to healing. When you see you're not the only one. It ain't doing so well, after all. Now it's pretty much on my own. You just want to feed your kids, clothe your kids, and just try to keep things cozy. You need to lean on somebody else and feed off of the strength of the people in that group and the strength of the counselors.
We can get you connected up with a couple of places that have clothing. We'll make sure we get you connected with food stamps.
I probably saved the whole entire family by not having to grow up under the thumb of an alcoholic. Sometimes you feel bad, but then you realize you have to save the kids. I went into carpentry because I never wanted to work in an office again in my life. I wanted to work in a job with equal pay. I was the person that said, I'm not reading the directions and I can't do it. You're all crazy. Let someone else do it. And just by people pushing me at the carpentry school, you find out you can do stuff, a lot of stuff. Stuff like that, however you want it. Okay, here we go, Jane. Here's your help. You pushing on it? Yeah. Most of my clients are my age and up. I've made so many permanent friends. Sometimes I spend more time having tea with these people than I do working in their houses. You have to get some branches that go with that shape. Just a lot of really fun people, you know, and it's just pleasant. Showing up at these jobs with my pink tool belt, my pink toolbox is so much fun. By learning how to deal with life and everything through the Women's Resource Center, I was someone really to lean on and talk to about the whole situation. Enabled me to keep all 5 of my kids on the same roof. try to have somewhat of a normal household. Silly doll. Here I am, decade later. Wait, Brennan, here, eat some. This is the bread I made just for you with my own 2 hands. I can provide for all the needs of the family. For anything we need, I'm able to provide for that, and that's really great. My sons, who are 27 and 28, we've been through a lot of healing over the years, and because I did take on these extra children, I get to be a grandmom extra soon. I was dying to do that, Adrian. Go for it. I've got such a great life. I got a life. I got not just a regular life, but a good life. Not to mention what I could do is so much fun. The things I could build and make and do to my own house has been a lot of fun. Finding the Women's Resource Center, you start to get your identity back, your joy back, your hope back, and your life back.
So obviously we didn't teach her how to become a carpenter. But one of the things that Diane shared with me that I thought really kind of helped articulate our role is that she said when she first came to WRC, she couldn't think outside of survival. Her identity was the life of an addict, and it was figuring out day to day, how am I going to get food, how am I going to get clothes, how am I going to keep money in my hands so that I can get my kids what they need. And for her to shift from that survival mode and seeing herself as the wife of an addict to actually being able to see herself as someone who is capable of being the provider and sole caregiver of her family was a big switch for her. And it was that transition that needed to happen before she could even make that leap into the Delaware County Community College where she learned to be a carpenter. So, any questions or anything about what I have? Questions about what we do?
No, I think that was great. Thank you, Cheryl. Are you guys still running the program through the middle schools?
We are. I didn't mention that here today, but we do run the Girls Lead program that we've run for 10 years at Radnor Middle School. It's the most amazing program. It is funded by Radnor Education Foundation. So.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, for coming. Radnor Historical Society.
Living a lot.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary McGinn. I'm the president of the Radnor Historical Society. I have a few brochures for people who aren't familiar. There's a program brochure and then our general brochure. So just quickly, the Radnor Historical Society has been in existence since 1947. In 1964, we acquired the building, the Finley House, which now houses our headquarters. We're in the first ward on Peachtree Lane, West Peachtree. And we are an all-volunteer organization, and two of my fellow board members are here tonight. So this, for the last 4 years, Radnor Township has been supporting us to the tune of $15,000 a year, and I just wanted to share with you tonight some of the things we're doing. This has made a big difference in our existence and our operating budget. We are, as I said, all volunteer, and our budget is only about $25,000 to $30,000 a year to keep us going. And getting that, and we've been husbanding that donation for the last 4 years. And this year we hired a historic architect to do an assessment of our building, and we got a report which gave us a maintenance plan and some programmatic upgrades that will help bring us into the 21st century. And we've begun a project that is catching up with some deferred maintenance on the exterior of the building, dealing with the stucco, carpentry, and paint on the building, which the last 4 years donation from the township really represents about half of the cost of that. And that is allowing us to do the work in a proper way to really address the historic fabric of the building. We're learning a lot about the building we didn't know before by working with these professionals. And so I wanted to thank the township, the commissioners, for continuing to support the Radnor Historical Society. Just to let you know what as an institution in the community, I think we serve an important purpose to not only maintain this beautiful property in the house, but the archives and the collections that represent the history of Radnor Township. We have frequent visitors who come to research their families, their houses, their properties. We have inquiries from all over the world from people who have lived here or had relatives who grew up here. We have you can see what our program is list of programs are this year. We have frequent visitors from the school district. The third graders make a regular trip in the spring to visit the house. And sorry, I'm blabbing on a little bit. I'm really here to answer questions if anybody has any interest in.
The Finley House, last time it was really renovated was in the 70s, wasn't it? Did I read that?
That would be the interior renovation, yes. So the exterior has been maintained over the years. Up until about the last 10 years, I think things were let a little bit go. The roof, the beautiful standing seam roof was put on, the township supported that about 10 years ago. So once we get
you needed to improve the interior for the displays, don't you?
We absolutely do, but we felt like we had to first address the exterior, the envelope of the building, so that what's going on inside is better protected. So one of the things that we're doing in addition to maintaining exterior and sealing things up is we've had a tenant over the years which provides some of our income. And as part of this renovation to the exterior, we also are doing a little bit of work on the interior so that we now have access to the third floor without going through the tenant's apartment. So that will allow us to deal with our collections. Our collections are to the point where we don't have enough storage space or space to process them and deal with things like planning exhibitions. So once we get that done, we will be looking for more funds to renovate the interior. We'd like to do paint analysis and paint some of the exterior rooms so that they're historically correct, and then upgrade our cases and our exhibition program.
How much have you spent on digital and electronic archiving and making that available to the public? Has that gone up?
We don't spend a lot. We really depend very much on volunteers. Greg Pritchard, who's also our secretary, is our webmaster. We all work for free. So the equipment costs are pretty minimal. Our Mac is not very new. Greg, do you want to address anything about the costs of our?
There's a lot more of the archives online than there was in the past, right?
Absolutely.
One of the things we do really well, thanks to Greg.
Yeah, well, fortunately, we're able to achieve a lot of that through volunteer work. But we do have computers. We have a scanner that's better than average, for example, and things like that do cost more than the average equipment. But fortunately, we don't need to replace it every year or a couple of years. It's more of a 5-10 year commitment for that kind of equipment. So.
And what about the monthly, or is it bi-monthly booklet you send out to
annual bulletin?
No, it's not annual. Every couple of months we get one.
Well, this year we were making up for it. We sent one out
more than once.
Yeah, about 6 months after the previous one. But yeah, that's something we do every year. Is something that we send out to all of our members.
And the most recent one had a big, nice piece on Luella and the history of Luella, as well as the 3 homes near Hilaire, right?
Yes, that's right.
So that was very good job. And also the one before that talked about Ardrossan and different things. So that's a very good magazine that really you should make it this size so you can see it without glasses.
It's been the same size for 60 years, so maybe we'll think about it.
It's time to upgrade.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I really appreciate your saying that we need to upgrade our interior. When we hired this historic architect, he came in and he sat down with us afterwards and he said, "Let me tell you what my first impression is when I walk in that front door. Grandma's house." So he said, "You have to work on that." So it's next in line. And if the commissioners would like to fund any of that, we can come up with some specific plans before you consider next year's budget, if you think that's something that would be open to. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Queen Arts Center.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of the Wayne Arts Center, and I wanted to thank Radnor Township Commissioners and the Township in general for their very generous support over the years. I've been at the Wayne Arts Center since 1987, and when I arrived, the Wayne Arts Center was a small cinder block shell about the size of a trailer, with 2 studios and 1 office. Today we're residing in a 30,000 square foot contemporary art facility with 9 art studios and 2 beautiful art galleries and award-winning gardens surrounding the art center and adjacent to the Radnor Trail. We worked very hard over the years with limited resources. When I arrived, it was myself, a part-time employee, and a part-time receptionist. And we survived that way for many years until we completed our first expansion, which was in 1995. The Art Center grew modestly, and within 5 years, the Art Center found itself needing more space. And we were fortunately able to acquire the facility adjacent to us, the Wayne Masonic Hall, and expanded into that facility and connected it to our original facility. And that expansion was completed in 2007. So we're now in 2018, and we've known for the last several years that we are running out of space once again. And we also are in great need of additional parking. So it's been very exciting to be a part of the Wayne Art Center. We really have an important function in the community. We provide over 500 classes, and with an enrollment of over close to 6,000 individuals, ages 2 through 102. So we work really hard, and we have a thriving art program as well as a music program. We have a string orchestra that we developed about 5 years ago, and by Greg Pritchard's mother, Joyce Pritchard, and it's been very popular. We also have, as I mentioned, 2 exhibition galleries, and we produce 20 exhibitions a year, which is really quite an undertaking in not only developing all of those exhibitions, installing those exhibitions, promoting those exhibitions, and we bring many, many different kinds of people into the township to see those exhibitions. Last year, during Craft Forms, which is one of our major exhibitions that we produce every year, which this year is in its 24th year, we had an artist that came all the way from China, and with his 2 family members. So there were 3 individuals that traveled all the way to Radnor Township from China to see the exhibition. Many of these people frequent the hotels in the area, the restaurants, the shops, so we bring a lot of people into the community. We have a variety of outreach programs. We started a program several years ago, Meet Me at WAC, which is modeled after a program that was developed for the Museum of Modern Art that serves individuals with early onset Alzheimer's. We also have an outreach program, Broaden Your World, which caters to individuals with brain injury. We go twice a week to the Timothy School in Berwyn and teach over 60 children that have autism. We participate in a program in Norristown for an after-school program for girls, and we just recently have been working with some of the students at Wayne Elementary School that are going to St. David's Episcopal Church for after-school programming. So we're very busy, and we have a staff of about 5 full-time staff members and 5 part-time, and we have over 200 volunteers that help us in our various events and during the week, helping us in the Art Center with various functions. So we appreciate Radnor Township's support, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Sewer Services.
So first of all, thank you. I know how long it is. You have a full day coming here to listen to us. I really appreciate you hanging in there. I'm Bob Madonna. I'm the President and CEO of Surrey Services. I'm finishing my 3rd year there. For those who don't know, Surrey was founded about 37 years ago by a Radnor resident, Jean LaRoche. We're a little different. We approach aging as a holistic approach to helping people in terms of not just the seniors, but also the families. I provide you a little pamphlet that you can look at your leisure to kind of see what we do. But I just want to share some statistics that we were able to do. About a year and a half ago, I met with Bob, and we chatted about Surrey and the township. And due to Bob, he kind of gave me a wake-up call that we got to get on our game to do more things to support the township, because you've been funding us for literally decades. So I want to share some numbers from last year to this year. Last year, we had basically your residents did about 6,600 different things in terms of activities with Surrey. It could be meals, it could be transportation, whatever it may be. Last year, we increased it over 10% to 7,380. So we actually have Radnor Township residents doing more things. In terms of the amount of people, and this is, I gave you a sheet with some of this information. I'm going to give you some highlights though. But to give you an idea, just meals alone, the year before, we had 1,200 meals were provided to Radnor Township residents. Last year, 2,100 meals, almost double the amount of meals that we provided Radnor Township residents. Rides, we gave 2,100 rides to folks in Radnor Township. We had, when I came here last year, 400 Radnor Township residents were members of Surrey. It's now 610, so a significant increase. And that's because we did an outreach program. When you look at our budget's about $4.7 million. When you look at what Radnor provides, it's about 1% of our budget, but yet about 10% of our members are Radnor Township residents. So I think we're doing a really good stewardship job of serving the township. And not only do we provide services to the township residents, your residents give back to us. We had close to 3,000 volunteer hours. We have 1,300 volunteers. We have close to 3,000 volunteer hours by residents of Radnor Township. So when you look at the numbers, what you're doing with your funding is making a big difference. And this year, it's even more important. United Way of Philadelphia provided us $165,000 in funding annually. This year, they made the decision to stop all programs for seniors. We get zero this year. They're now doing intergenerational poverty, which is a wonderful mission, but it's not great if you're an older adult in the area. So $165,000 of our budget that we had every year is gone. On top of that, we actually had a Cabrini University. We did an antique show, Radnor Township right here. This year we could not do one because there was no dates available because of the university. So it was $100,000 of net profits we got. So between those two, I have a $250,000 deficit I have to find this year, which is going to be very difficult. But we're working hard on it. Another thing that happened to us was that big rainstorm we had about a month or so ago. I was out in sunny San Diego on vacation. I got a phone call, check your text message it. We had a waterfall coming down our parking lot that actually lifted up our macadam and pulled up the whole rocks. We have $20,000 in damage that we have to take care of. So this year is going to be a real crucial year for us. And what I'm asking for is Radnor Township, if you can keep giving us the support you've given us over the last few decades, we would be thrilled. But I want to share a couple stories with you. The numbers are great. We're doing some amazing things at Surrey. One of the things I'm proud of is when I was hired, I told a story to the board. And what it was, I did a lot of work with nonprofits and consulting. And I had a young couple came to me and said, Bob, I want to start a nonprofit. They're in their 30s. And I said, oh, another nonprofit. For those who don't know, in the Philly area, the city, the 4 counties, South Jersey, there's 43,700 nonprofits. That's how many people are looking for dollars. So I asked this couple, what do you want to do another nonprofit? They said, well, let me tell you a story. My dad had Alzheimer's, and he was at the very end of it. My mom's been taking care of him 7 by 24. I went over to the house. They getting ready for their first child to see their parents. And he says, I walked in the door. My mom committed suicide in front of me. I sat there and went, just like you did. And he said, if my mom had one day away from helping my dad, she'd be alive today. So in January, at our Devon location, we're starting a respite care service. So from 9 to 4, people with their loved ones who need help can bring them to Devon. We will take care of them. We have activities being planned. We have a small grant from the state to start it. So we're now looking at ways to provide more services to older adults and their families in the area. We're also working on, we have a veterans group, very strong. In fact, we have a veterans meal sold out for November 11th, which is the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. We're now doing dinners at 7. We have sold out every night. We have done a dinner. We have 75 people come for dinner. It's very expensive. We give filet mignon, or salmon with wine and dessert, it's $10. Which, you know, if you laugh, but we have to start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they get there at 3 waiting for dinner. And you gotta get out early. I got home at 6, I'm like, I'm done dinner, what do I do now? But at Surrey, what I really feel strongly about is we're making more and more inroads in the community. My missions to come here to ask for your continued support is something also. Not just financially, but it's to help us get the word out. We're finding more and more people need help. More and more people, you know, we're in the mainline area, we're in Devon, we're in Havertown, we're in Broomall, people think we don't need money. Well, it's not that we need money. People need help. And we serve over 6,000 people. And when I hear the stories of people, we have Radnor Township residents, one of my folks gave me new. He had no bathroom. He was actually, sadly enough, using his kitchen for his bathroom. He could not prepare meals. He was going into his neighbors to use it. They reached out to us. We worked with the county. We got volunteers. We worked with project managers, and we put him a whole brand new bathroom, so now he can utilize that. Another person is, we're helping her with her scheduling her medical appointments, register her car, help with insurance, dental care. We have free dental care in Devon. If you're a member of Surrey for a whole $35 a year, on Thursdays, we give you free dental care. All we ask for, we didn't used to ask income, but we'd like to see you below $50,000. We give you free dental care. So the range of services is growing every day. The needs are growing every day, and your support's very, very important to us. And because of our conversation last time, you've asked me about where else we get funding. I went like a child and stomped my feet and asked Chester County to help us out because they never gave us funding. Last year they gave us $90,000. Malvern Borough is now helping us out. We're in discussions with Triffin Township to get funding. We're in discussions with Easttown Township to get funding. Hartford Township gives us funding. Media Borough gives us funding. We're going to all the municipalities we serve to ask us for help because we can only do so much. That $4.8 million budget, $2 million has to be raised. The rest is in program fees from our home care services and our other program fees. So $2 million is a lot of money to raise every year. So what you've been doing for us for decades is phenomenal. I ask if you can continue what you've been doing the past few years would be great. I promise you when I come back here each year, I'll show you numbers that keep growing. And the other thing I'd like to, before you can ask some questions, is please tell people what we do. Tell people that any older adult or their family needs help, call us. We had somebody call us a year ago and said, I want to take voice lessons. I love to sing. We found our voice lesson coach. We'll do whatever it takes to help an older adult. Now, by the way, older adult, anybody over 55. Also, one of your Radnor Township residents is now our honorary board member. Steve Batchus is now a lifelong board member for us. The other thing I want to share is that we look at, and I heard it earlier, but we do neighbor, helping neighbor, and that is where Gene started this 37 years ago. And we're looking at, we just finished our strategic plan, and we were hoping to last for a very, very long time. Any questions that you can throw at me? The tough ones are the best ones.
Bob, are any of your services reimbursable, or do you?
So we do get some funding from COSA, Department of Aging in Delaware County, which helps us with funding. We also provide, we do lower income people, and some of the stories I told you, lower income people, we do provide subsidies for their services when we do home care. We're now applying for grants. The Delaware County Foundation just gave us a grant for $30,000 last week to help us out for low income people for home care services. Two of the things I can share is that we were named in the state of Pennsylvania the Senior Center of the Year. Last year in the state of Pennsylvania, there's 300 senior centers. We were named Center of the Year. So we're working hard to get credibility. We've gotten a lot of accolades in the last year. There's one they'll be announcing real soon, another Nonprofit of the Year award. But most of our funding comes from people who help us out. Yes.
What's the intersection, if any, or overlap with Wayne Senior Center? Is there any connection, or is there any synergies, or is there any relationship at all?
Yes. We Sharon, myself, the gentleman who runs Upper Darby and Coleman Gardens, and the folks who run Lower Delaware County meet on a monthly basis with COSA. We share stories. We discuss things we're doing, what works, what doesn't work. Sharon, I met to visit Sharon. We talk about things we can do. The dilemma gets down to is they have the same issue we have, parking. Okay, we were able last year to secure, Kevin Horse Show allows us to use their lot during the day, so all of our employees park there. But yeah, Sharon and I talk. We share some programs, like right now, what they're doing I think is great with the having the meals. One of the things that makes us different, we have a chef, full-time chef, so we're able to have great meals. What she's doing there is, I think, Susan's doing great things in Wayne Center. So we do compare notes, but realistically, it's hard to, we do a lot of things other than just the senior center. A lot of the service we provide are above and beyond the senior center. But we do talk, and we are on committees together.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
And thank you.
Thank you for coming. And I think so, Radnor Fire Company. Good evening.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
That's not Chris Flanagan looking for a parachuting equipment, so make sure that's good.
How many remotes?
Take a few minute break here while England sets up. No break, just keep going. Okay.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Amy Berzunas, Administrative Director at Radnor Fire Company. I appreciate the time you all have carved out this evening. There's a lot of things going on. Tonight we're going to do things a little bit differently. Many of you have heard me speak at meetings. We've gone through the standard budget presentation showing the income and expense. Tonight I want to really inform why we're asking for additional funding revolving around staffing. And that ties back to NFPA 1710 and NFPA 1720. They're the two standards that inform decision-making at the fire company with how we staff both fire response and EMS response. So I'm going to walk through this tonight, and then certainly any questions or anything you have at the end, I'd be happy to answer them. Let's get right into it. So these two standards really, it dictates how we're responding to the community, how we want to respond, how we need to respond based on recognized national standards that have been developed by industry experts and people in our field. It helps take out some of the emotion and some of the throwing stuff at the wall type of mentality that sometimes can happen in volunteer fire companies. These standards are tried and true, utilized throughout the country. And again, these are things that we're relying on for guidance for our organization. The biggest thing with this is it's allowing you all to make good decisions. Obviously, you can hear us stand up here and talk at these meetings about what we need, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, you guys want some assurances that, hey, are we following good methodology here and using good metrics for why we're requesting additional funding, why we're having the staff that we have at the fire company. So one of the caveats that we have to put out there with the NFPA, they are involved with a lot of different things. They establish electrical code, life safety standards. A lot of what the Community Development Department does here around our township is dictated by NFPA in coordination with state codes. As I mentioned, NFPA 1720 and 1710 talk about how we're responding. The difference between the two numbers, 1710 is primarily geared towards fully paid departments. So City of Philadelphia, City of Pittsburgh. 1720 is driven towards more volunteer staffed departments. If you look at a Radnor Fire Company or a Bryn Mawr Fire Company or Berwyn Fire Company, we're considered combination departments. We have both volunteers and paid employees. The lion's share of our work that is done at the fire company, both operationally and administratively, is still done by volunteers, but there is a large paid component, which many of you are aware of, that really helps us go, especially during the daytime hours, and most of our volunteers are working a regular 9-to-5 job. Kind of jumped ahead, already explained this, just kind of just, again, career versus volunteer as far as the two standards. The only other thing I'd add into this, as far as what we've been doing rather the last few years, we have been hiring paramedic-only employees, so they can't do both fire and EMS service, but the majority of our full-time staff are firefighter paramedics, so they can do both functions. We have firefighter EMTs, which provide a level of medical care a step below a medic, but they can do both functions. And then we just have medic-onlys, and they just respond to the highest level medical calls that we have in the fire company. One of the things, we'll get into the numbers here. If you've ever heard about staffing or some of the battles that go on across the country with this, everyone gets locked on to having 4 guys on an engine. The standard doesn't necessarily speak to that. So we're not necessarily looking for that tonight. We feel the numbers that we're putting forth are responsible in conjunction with what volunteer staffing looks like today at the fire company. But again, just I think it's important that you also know this isn't a law, and there's nothing mandating us to follow this. It's a standard, it's a recommendation, but this is truly everything we do at the fire company, whether it's purchasing the personal protective gear that we wear, or buying fire trucks, everything keys in off NFPA, everything. If God forbid something went south on a call, we get called in the courtroom, that standard is going to come right out, be thrown right at us. So everything that we do is impacted by NFPA. Some of the things, we'll kind of bounce between 1710, 1720, and there are a lot of similarities. And this is something I've talked about with the township manager and the finance director. Along with looking at some of these standards of how quickly we want to get units to someone's home, this is a 1710 standard for a fully paid department. 4 people in 1 vehicle arrive at a fire scene in 5 minutes, 90% of the time. We're nowhere close to that, just so everybody's very clear. That's not germane to Radnor. Berwyn's in the same boat, as well as pretty much everybody up and down the main line. Nobody's meeting the standard. The other big thing is, when does it really matter? I mean, obviously fire alarms, you have mulch fires, you have lower priority calls, where sometimes you can argue that time really, an extra minute or 2 isn't going to hurt necessarily, but where time really matters when we have a legitimate incident, when we have a structure fire occurring. The other day, recent example, off of Beach Tree, we had a house fire, a bedroom fire where a subject got burned in the residence. Awesome response from the fire company, from Radnor, being assisted by Berwyn and some of our other organizations. We met the standard that day, and thankfully we did. Really could have been a big fire if there had been a delay in response to quickly mitigate. Really, significant damage throughout the home, but I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. Really, as far as, or 2-room fire essentially what it boiled down to, the heavy smoke throughout. So to break down the numbers as far as like people, because your eyes might be glazing over a little bit, to kind of understand what's going on when we go to a fire call, when something that is happening, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So this breaks down all the different functions that are happening at a fire scene. Now granted, all fires aren't created equal, but this is actually a good model of what happened on Beach Tree within the last couple of weeks, what everybody was doing at that scene. You had Joe McGuire, fire chief, running command. You had somebody pumping the first truck. We had 2 firefighters on the inside on the tack line. We had 2 guys on the backup line. Kind of go through the list, so I can kind of go through my head. The different guys are serving in these functions to get us to a successful outcome. But those numbers are very, very accurate as far as what needs to happen. So the only thing is, what happens if we don't get there? I kind of explain that. Really, you as local leaders and really the community needs to decide is what do they want us to do? I mean, for many, many years, The fire company's kind of been there. It's been the center of activity for the town. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different priorities, but only at the end of the day, the township really, at the beginning of the year, you guys do the resolution. You designate Bryn Mawr to cover the township, Radnor to cover the township, Bryn Mawr Fire Company, and that's really it. And that's not anything negative towards you. I mean, this is a standard thing across the Commonwealth. It's very seldom you're going to find a municipality that's going to say, all right, you're the designated provider, here's the standards and benchmarks we want you to meet. You can put one out to me, tell me, because I'm still looking for it. Again, local control is emphasized with either of the standards. With EMS, there's a little bit of caveat with EMS. We use NFPA for guidance with this, but it's also in conjunction with the Pennsylvania Department of Health, which is where our license is through. One of the major significant changes, and we've run into some frustration from the community with this, is non-emergency response for lower level priority calls. So technically, if we're getting any call to nursing homes, so the best example I can give you is 404 Cheswick, a little further away than going to Wayne Nursing on West Avenue. We're going to 404 Cheswick and someone falls there, it's a non-emergency response. We cannot use lights and sirens. Now you all know what traffic looks like on Conestoga Road at multiple points of the day. It's going to take a long time to get there. So we can turn our lights on and then go to the call, but the second we get into an accident or something happens, what call were you guys going to? Oh, we were going to, somebody fell in a nursing facility and they scraped their knee. I mean, sometimes it happens. So that's a big issue. So really when we come down to the higher priority calls, cardiac arrest, respiratory difficulty, anaphylaxis, somebody getting stung by a bee or reacting to food or something, that's where using lights and sirens, that's where the standards kick in. But the one thing that NFPA doesn't address is that non-emergency mode that a lot of states are going to, because again, why are we trying to kill ourselves or put people at risk for very minor stuff? Maybe a big deal that person calling, but we need to be mindful of everybody's safety when we're using lights and sirens. Same thing on the fire side. I already explained the EMS, but essentially it's the same standard. They're looking for a 5-minute standard with 1710. The 1720 standard allows for additional time, 9 minutes. But again, it gives a little bit of idea of what time frame looks like. One of the things that hopefully I'll have the opportunity to come in November, and this is a follow-up from something we were charged with to the previous board, was executing on our strategic plan, doing an internal study and review of who we are, what we're doing, what the community thinks of us, and what we think of each other, good, bad, and indifferent. So along with that, and I mentioned that because of the long-range plan activities. I mean, one of the things we talked about was really focusing on our staff deployment, both for volunteers and career staff. The biggest thing, a few people in the audience have heard me at the meetings, we're a proud volunteer organization, but the reality is we're going to need additional funding to pay for paid staff. That's just a reality. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is not something germane to Radnor. I've used that word already, but it's relevant. We have an ability to pay for things now ourselves. The issue it's going to run into is starting to drive us into the ground, especially with our reserves. There's other agencies around us that have done a lot of things on their own, and they're having some financial difficulties because of that. The one thing that in my 10 years working at Radnor is the board, I feel, has stayed ahead in regard of putting funding into the fire company, so we're not getting to the point where the fire company is circling the drain and we're in a panic. We're not in a panic at this point, but we feel that we're at a point where if we don't start putting significant money year over year, having a good plan for staffing, that it's basically a tsunami effect if we kick this down the road and don't start dealing with this in a meaningful way. Just a couple things I think are important. So we have automatic and mutual aid agreements. So we work regularly with Berwyn, we work regularly with Bryn Mawr, Newtown Square, King of Prussia, Sweetland. So for the bigger incidents, we can't do it all ourselves. So we're working with our neighbors continuously. Same thing on the ambulance side. If we get busy, like today, we went second call a couple times today. So if we get a third call, Narberth, Berwyn, Riddle EMS, someone's going to come and back us up, but keep in mind when that happens, there's an extended response time coming and help somebody. And when you have a higher level medical emergency, that can seem like forever when you wait for a mutual aid to come in. Yeah, definition of company is just what I got to talk to that. You guys are used to hearing that. A lot of states use department. We're just called fire company. Yeah, that's all that is. As far as private third-party ambulance services, you see a lot of those run around the area. It's like AMR, so they're doing a lot of non-emergency transports from the nursing facilities. The one thing we've encountered, though, within like the last 3 to 4 years, is they're unavailable a lot of the times. So a call that is not a 911 issue, those facilities have a policy where they're calling 911 ambulance to provide services, which we cannot refuse to go to that call. It's something that Commissioner Booker, we've talked about. Some of those calls, you just like, this is ridiculous, why are we going? But we have a duty to act. We can't pick and choose the call, so we go, and unfortunately you get tied up for 45, 50 minutes, not including the paperwork you have to do with the call, and only at the end of the day, we're not getting paid for that call. Medicare will deny that claim we bill because they will say it's not medically necessary for a 911 ambulance. It should have been a transport. They don't care about all the stuff that went on beforehand. The fact that they called, they couldn't get it, whatever. We get kind of stuck in the middle and we end up losing money going out the door. That's repeated multiple times throughout the week for us. The other thing, I mean, this ties up, I don't want to get, I know you've had a lot of discussion about the flooding, but I think it's worth noting, you know, the biggest thing, local risk analysis and response determination. You know, fortunately, you're not going to, we're coming out of the flood season, but you kind of saw, that's one example of one thing that we do at the fire company besides just going to fire calls. Everybody hears the word fire company, they assume, oh, you just go to fire. It's not really true. It's fire, it's medical, it's water rescues, high angle rescues, it's a whole myriad of different things that are going on. So you know, it's kind of relevant that that's on there. The one thing that we do, we've provided this data before, I'll hit a couple points at the end here, our data collection. So we have to report to the state in order to be eligible for annual grants. So we get up to $15,000 from the State Fire Commissioner's Office for fire and up to $10,000 typically for EMS. That's it, as far as state grant money from the Office of State Fire Commissioner. But to be eligible for that in the first place, we need to provide data. We do that. We have a reporting system we do that on. We want to start doing that probably on a more regular basis. I know we have Assistant Chief McGuire starting to come to the township meeting, which is great, to report on some of that monthly activity. Because only you guys need information. When we come here, just the budget meeting, it's not really too productive. So I think getting that ongoing dialogue and discussion is good, especially publicly, so the community is informed. And also a clear indication about what service levels we're providing. I've hit this a few times, but you guys are all the roost. We can make good recommendations, give you good data and facts, so you can be informed and make good decisions. So that's one of the reasons that we're obviously here tonight. All right, so one of the things that I thought would be helpful for you, and again, informing our budget requests this year, is just giving you some real-time data from our chief's office regarding our responses. So this includes all people. This is volunteers and career staff. So currently right now, Monday through Friday, I won't bore people too into the details here. So Monday through Friday, there's 5 of us at the firehouse. There's 2 ambulance crews. One starts at 6 a.m., other starts at 7. They run a 12-hour shift. I'm there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, 10 to 6, whenever. So I'm a floater. So I go on ambulance calls or fire calls and assist where needed. So I'm kind of the 5th guy during the day if I'm not tied up in a meeting or something. And then everything else is all volunteer during the day after that. At night, we go down to 1 paramedic who's paid, and then the second spot is either a part-time employee or a volunteer that's completing that 1 ambulance overnight. So you're to get at least 1, maybe 2 paid guys at night. That's it. 2 people in the firehouse. On the weekends, slightly different. You have 4 guys on during the day, 2 at night, Saturday, Sunday. So to give you an idea of what the paid component is. The volunteers basically fill in whenever they can. So from the beginning of the year, and this is just our fire response data, first column month year, January through August. So we have apparatus staff. That's the guys that are physically on the apparatus. This is all calls. And then what station staff we have total responders, and then dispatched on scene. Keep in mind that you really start peeling the layers of the onion back on this. When you start looking at the types of responders, so this includes guys that aren't finished with their firefighter 1 yet. They might be 3/4 of the way through their firefighter 1, which is essentially their basic training, for just to keep this easy here. And this includes guys that are drivers only. They're not interior firefighters anymore. So that number really isn't fully reflective of guys who can physically go in and fight a fire and do all functions that need to be done on response. So that's the first thing. But I really think that the biggest number right now is the dispatch on scene times. If you look at from January, 9 minutes 29 seconds, and our highs in August. We haven't done September, October yet. 11 minutes and 47 seconds. So that's an average. That's a long time. The one thing, and when I wear my volunteer hat at Berlin, the one thing I've noticed in my 10 years is that the traffic is completely different down in Radnor than it is just a couple miles up the street, different in Easttown. It's a whole different animal. When you get up in the Paley, it's a little bit similar with what Radnor looks like, but traffic patterns definitely have a major impact on our response time, there's no question. The other thing that impacts response time, we refer to as turnout time. It's the time it takes you receive the alarm on your pager, your phone, and how quickly we're getting out the door. So the idea is the more guys that can physically put in the firehouse that we know are there, the faster we're getting out the door, cutting that turnout time. So we're running traffic delays or other obstacles during a response, bad weather, you can close that gap a little bit better. So, and you gotta also keep in mind, this includes our pay guys too during the day. So I can tell you during the week, it's 4 or 5 of us, Monday through Friday. But this gives you, I mean, this is tried and true. This is it. I mean, this is what things look like right now. The other scenarios, and again, not specific to us. So if we get a fire call during the day, or excuse me, if we get 2 ambulance calls, it happens pretty regularly. It's me by myself, and then I might get one or two other guys that come. So a lot of the times it does get sketchy at times. And that's another reason why we're looking for some additional assistance with the staffing. And we're doing better. One of the guys, Damian Underley, he's doing a lot of good work right now, trying to get our volunteer base up. That takes time though. You get a young guy, especially the high schoolers or the college kids, depending on where they're going, we get them in spurts. We get them in the summer, we get them for breaks. So, and you're kind of in that weird period, that 3 to 4 year period during school. Are they going to stay or are they going to go? And they took this roller coaster ride with some of these guys and gals. And again, that's a volunteer fire service wide issue that we're having. Another reason why at least getting some paid bodies in there will kind of close that gap. But we haven't thrown in the towel with volunteers by any means. And we're doing a lot of stuff, trying to do more with the website, more with the outreach, and just trying to get that number up as best we can. But at the heart, they're volunteers. And guys can't be there for every call. People have families, people are working jobs, and we're running, plus or minus 3,000 calls a year between EMS and fire. So there's a lot of activity that's going on, and majority of those calls are during the day. That's when it's happening. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a different approach to this, talk about why we're asking for the budget increase, which is $250,000 to go directly back into staffing. For full-time and part-time staff. And ultimately what that will do is that will help get us working towards having 6 people on during the day, which would include myself. So we're adding that 1 additional person during the day, Monday through Friday, and adding 1 additional person at night. So we have 3 people on duty at night. So that's really where it's going to help us plug some gaps. Right now, with part-time staffing, we do some shift changes. So we do 8-hour shifts or 10-hour shifts. Our goal with additional funding is to move those shifts to 12-hour shifts because they're easier to manage. And with the way the area works, a lot of the organizations, that's just the way people are doing it. It's either doing 12s or doing 24s. If you start doing shorter shifts, you have less tendency to be able to keep people and maintain good guys on the part-time roster for shifts of that short duration. So that's the other thing that would be the change in our operation. We get rid of the 8-hour shifts, go to 12-hour shift rotations.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a couple. What percentage percentage or percent of the calls are the non-billable ones? You said that, I don't know if this is maybe you, or maybe I should have addressed this with Radnor as well, where it's kind of I don't want to say a nuisance call, but...
Are you referring to ambulance or fire or both?
No, ambulance.
Okay, yeah. So on the, I can send you the current number for the year. I don't want to, I'll send you the report. I can send that to the full board. I mean, typically...
just ballpark, I mean,
yeah, well, our payer mix right now, so our biggest right now, Medicare and Medicaid is the lion's share of our payers. So it's over, right around, it's like 50, probably 45–50% for Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay.
The next biggest bracket we have is commercial medical payers. And then we have, workers' comp and some others trickled in towards the end there. But as far as billable, technically anytime we're going out the door, those calls are billable.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're not doing we're not evaluating someone or actually doing a service, we can't bill for that. If we get recalled, we can't bill for that. So that fluctuates. I mean, typically, 60 to 70% of the calls we go on are billable as a range. And then I can certainly give you all the current numbers for 2018.
Sure. These like non-billable, I'm just going to say, for lack of a better term, nuisance call, or I don't know, you said someone scrapes their knee and you're like, why are we here? How much?
We don't say that, but
yeah, no.
we can't say
no, I mean, I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm
Yeah,
just saying that the calls when someone's in cardiac arrest and some that aren't. How much does that cost the firehouse when it comes to basically unrecouped unrecouped money from from these calls?
Yeah, if you look at our total calls and we take into consideration wear and tear, fuel, and hourly wages, the training levels the guys have, the billing processing, you're basically looking around $650 per response. Now keep in mind on a Medicare, the average bill return we get back is around like $430. So basically already losing, from a billing perspective, you're already losing as soon as you go out the door to a nursing facility, from a billing perspective. And I don't mean to make that sound very, very negative, because ultimately why we exist is to provide the service, but just peeling that part away for a sec, just from a dollars and cents standpoint, we're already not in a good situation from a billing standpoint. The only thing I would add on it with the Medicare and Medicaid, we have no choice. We have to contract with the federal government. And then everything else we do is considered out of network, because unfortunately if we were to go in network, we would get paid faster, but we would essentially be getting paid the Medicare rate or 110% of Medicare, which is still lower than what we would be, what our average response cost is, around $650 per call.
And the only reason why I'm asking that, just seems like, because it's very expensive when you leave and you go somewhere. If it's $600, the cost is $600 or $400.
Yeah.
Cutting down on that, and I don't know if that could really, really help lower. And I don't know if if they're the usual culprits where it's I don't want to say not elderly people, but I do. Pardon?
Well, it's twofold. One thing we do, we have good communication with 404 Cheswick Presbyterian Village. We talk to 30 West. They're very. The facilities run pretty good. I've been around 20 years at this point, 10 years at Radnor. They've gotten better as far as what they're comfortable clearing and what they're not. Because sometimes you'll get the normal thing with staff where they're nervous if someone falls. Especially hourly, even minor falls that maybe seem minor could be a broken hip. So you really don't want to mess around with those types of things.
I guess where I'm leading is, and sorry to be so long-winded, is last year when you came and you spoke, you said that some of the non-billable stuff was from some of the college students.
Correct.
Has that improved? So knowing what you've just told me now, now here's my question: it's $400. Obviously, if it's in the dorm, that may be more Bryn Mawr than you, but when you go outside, are you recouping some of those costs and what?
I guess the first thing, as far as the EMS service, so I know, and this gets very confusing, believe me, for just the regular residents here. So all the EMS in Radnor Township is 100% is Radnor Fire Company. Bromar does the fire from 320 east to the municipal borders, and they just do the fire protection. So we do all EMS. Norberth, they would provide secondary coverage on the eastern side of the township, just so we're clear on that. But yeah, I mean, we're doing. I mean, after Commissioner Booker, especially, we're doing more. We have more communication with Villanova, specific around the ambulance billing issue. Working with students, getting better communication with their officials down there that we interact with. I think it's improved. The biggest issue in that is we run into parents that get upset that we bill them because they think that tuition covers the bill. And I can, like, I've been in this 10 years, I get all the phone calls. I'm just telling kind of the boots on the ground type of thing. That's never going to stop because you just get that turnover of these people. They come from. I had a guy in Long Island, New York, who actually lived right near where my sister-in-law is from, sent this nasty letter to us, and just what you're funded 100% by taxes, and this whole. And it's like, well, no, it's not the way it works. It's municipal support, private donations, ambulance billing. Those are the three main things that we do. And we have other aspects, but those are the three biggest things that'll keep the fire company rolling.
I know you're looking at, so I've talked to Damien about, I know you're looking at like kind of beefing up the private fundraising, because, I'm going to say, like, I get solicitations from the ambulance, and it's still to like the people who owned my house 15 years ago. Like, it's not even the right name. So is that something you guys are going to be looking at as well, or? Yeah,
I mean, we did the joint event with Berwyn this year for the fire expo as one example. That was a budget neutral venture for both companies, so that had saved somewhere between $5,000 to $8,000 respectively between the two companies, which is we're not talking major dollars. It does make a difference. As far as the fundraising, as far as list generation and things like that, that's something Damien's trying to work on and improve. Maybe just on his professional background with Deloitte, he's a little more attuned with that. So we have some of the guys have been there a long time working on the fundraising or transitioning things. So I anticipate those things will start to improve and modernize, so to speak. Even right now, like we get roughly 27% of the residents donate to the fire company on a direct mail solicitation. So you really compare that to most industries, it's actually pretty high.
That is pretty good.
So we certainly, like as you're getting at, we want that number to be higher, because if it was higher, then we wouldn't have to be in here asking the town to step up again to help fund the fire company. But that's not. I'm an optimist, believe me, and I've been doing this long enough. I want to believe that there's people want to support us, and I think they do. I think the common thing that we're running across is people think that we're fully paid still. And I don't feel we're ever going to get past that notion. Yes, we can do newsletters, beef up the fundraising, but ultimately, you as the elected officials, you're the closest to it. And you guys understand, you're elected, you're leaders, but the conversations we have one-on-one, it's literally the same thing. Oh, I don't understand, or why is this, or why is that? And it's just, they assume it's all squared away until they need it, and then they realize, uh-oh, we got a problem. So, thank you.
What percentage of your budget does that the $250,000 that you're asking for impact, and how much?
Well, right now, between the lion's share of our municipal support comes from Radnor Township, which is 30% of our budget roughly. So that would have a major impact with the municipal line item as far as providing support. A paid employee for us, depending if it's an EMT or a firefighter, like salary and benefits fully loaded, between $82,000 and $96,000 fully loaded. So if we went just with, we could do 2 full-time people and add in some additional part-time, or we could say, okay, we're going to do it all with part-time hours. So we have some flexibility with it. We've been using part-timers for as long as I've been in the fire company, 10 years as a full-timer, just to get, keep, save some money, as you all are very familiar with. But that's another thing the area is very incestuous. It's like the same 60 or 70 part-time people that are kind of going, working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs, and it's like, it is insane. I mean, trying to fill these things. And the one thing that I teed up with Bob and Bill as we look forward with the strategic plan and communication with you all, because ultimately we need your buy-in and your support, is moving more towards a full-time model that's more reliable, that guys aren't killing themselves, and we're in this constant hiring routine. You go on today, like you look around, like everybody's hiring. Goshen, Pale, like Berwyn's going to be posting soon for part-time. It's like this never-ending vicious cycle because guys are working 2 or 3 jobs between these fire companies.
Well, on the reimbursement, Villanova says that they do pay for that, but that's when they are called first, I guess. And no. So I think the issue is students that are transported when they are off campus. Right?
Correct.
But if they are on campus, Villanova,
we have a billing agreement. Correct.
You do get paid by
Correct.
Villanova directly.
Correct. If a service is rendered, correct.
So
if we get recalled, we get recalled.
It's hard for me to get a sense of what the difference and breakdown between those two is. So that's one thing. And then what about coordination with Villanova, whose ambulance is not on the county call system, so you get overlap? Is there any plan to resolve that issue?
I can talk to you more offline, but I'm trying very hard with a few other people to get that figured out. I've talked to the township manager about this almost ad nauseum, knocking on his door at random times of the day. I'm trying. That's the best I can tell you. I'm pretty persistent, as Bob will tell you. So I'm working on it, Commissioner. That's all I can tell you at this point.
Well, Villanova, are they doing anything? Right? We need them to be part of, or are they not allowed to be part of our system?
Well, I think this comes down to, and correct me where I'm wrong, is I think you have another ambulance that responds to the campus that, again, they don't respond to, which they should be responding to. So I think some of that is problematic as part of this.
Okay, I didn't understand that at all, but we'll
like
pick
a
that
rogue ambulance? Like, what does that mean?
Narberth ambulance. It's competition. It's competing. It should be Radnor's EMS responding to the campus. So there is a competitive nature, and I think it's part of the conversation with the university of who is the responder in medical emergencies.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing
I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, the only other thing I just add to it, I mean, basically you have 911 services and then you have standby services. And there's been, unfortunately, not on our part, but things have been merged in certain circles at the campus, and it's created some confusion. So we're trying to unconfuse that, get the boundaries set, who's in what lane, who's providing what services. We'll actually be down there tomorrow night, meet with their a bunch of students with the volunteer recruitment. So we are having good dialogue with the DEMS student leadership. But again, there's some side things going on. We're trying to just correct. Is all I can really.
Is there anything that the board can do to help you not be a $650 Uber ride?
No, I mean,
you
guys have too much.
That's what it comes down to, and we're going to subsidize it.
Yeah, to an extent,
and that's just a waste of everyone's resources. Period. So that's kind of the, and I don't. That was my question. Was basically how much does this stuff cost? When you look at it on a yearly amount.
Can we call Uber with somebody who's got an EMT certificate?
So I mean, and again, that's my question. Like, has it improved from last year, and what can we as a board do to help? Because this seems like a $650 Uber ride, and not to say that some of them aren't really sick, but on some of the cases where they don't pay, it's just a drain, no?
It is. I think the biggest thing that really the board and even the public can do is, make good decisions. I mean, everybody's different with how they react to different events and things. So it's hard for me to stand here and tell you what to do or not to do. You call, we're going to respond. That's the way the state law works. I mean, I think the biggest thing from a communication standpoint is really just educate what we do, what service we provide. There are We've, urgent care on Conestoga Road. There's the Patient First in Devon. I mean, there's different things in the healthcare system that really haven't merged together. Like some other states, there's ambulances that actually transport you to an urgent care. They don't take you to the ER. The state's very behind in that regard. So only at some point, I don't know if it's in my lifetime, but they'll incorporate urgent cares as well as the hospitals in the whole system management. And they'll work out the billing with how the billing's straightened out. And the state just approved a treat no transport bill, just got signed, I think, within the last couple of weeks. Linda, I'm sure, probably wrote something on it. But that'll help a little bit. We ran the numbers on it. That'll generate another $6,000 to $7,000 with a legislative bill being passed. But there's certainly, with the staff and with Commissioner Booker, again, talked a lot about things the state can do to help clean up the ambulance by how it works. So that really, for many, many years, what the big shift's been in the last 10 to 15 years, ambulance billing, we're making money. It was profitable. We didn't need as many paid guys. There was a lot of volunteers around. And then as the volunteer numbers has been declining, we need to add more paid guys in. So you're basically seeing that ambulance reimbursement and the career staff need crisscrossing, and that's where we're at right now. The ambulance billing environment isn't getting better, based on what I see. It's a great move by the state to do that, but for us, minimal impact. For companies out like in Center County, the center part of the state, it's tremendous. They'll make an additional $50,000 to $80,000, which is great, but they weren't getting any money to start with. That's not our issue. We're still generating around $800,000 to $850,000 of revenue off the ambulance billing. So still paying for a lot of what we need on an ongoing basis, operating wise, year over year. So it's still, if we didn't have that, we'd really be in a world of hurt. And the taxpayers would really be feeling it.
Eamon, you should know before you came in, Dan Cuff said Bryn Mawr is not seeing an increase in paid staff because their volunteers are fine. So that's inconsistent.
Well, that's inconsistent for them, not with us.
Okay.
So did they provide this to you? Because I would just push back as that's the number. So that's facts. So I would ask them to come and do the same thing.
I'm just saying we had another guy who's like, nah, we have no problem there. So I don't know.
Well, I guess the one thing I would say, and I really don't mean to sound defensive on this, but I've never stood up in front of this township. I'm not saying you're saying I'm making stuff up or the fire company.
No,
we're going to get it to you straight. Yeah. So I can sit back. We can sit back and say, look, we're going to ride the wave.
I'm just saying.
Reserves and go out of business.
I'm just saying we heard something inconsistent, so you guys should, huddle up.
Well, hold on. You said Bryn Mawr doesn't have an ambulance, so they need less volunteers. Correct. Okay.
That could be it too.
Yeah.
And also on the issue of billing, I suggested that we write a law and try to bill. We have Villanova bill and pay these bills, and I got a lot of pushback. Nobody wanted to take that up.
The pilot, yeah.
Yeah. So no, it wasn't a pilot. It was payment of it would actually be paid by Villanova.
I thought you wanted like a student fee.
Yeah, I wanted a student fee.
We want it all.
So we want a student fee, so Bill Villanova would pay it, even when they weren't through the billing thing.
Didn't John Rice look into that?
Yeah,
John Rice was supposed to look into it, and
He said we couldn't do it.
I thought he said you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can't do it. No,
we could do it, but he didn't want to. But whatever.
I thought it was legal.
I do want to say that
if he wanted to find a way, he could have. But whatever.
I still say they do a phenomenal job when you look at what they do with fires, what they do with medical emergencies, auto accidents, the rescues in the water, in the flooding, and those types of issues. I mean, seeing them in action, they do an incredible job. You really do. We're very fortunate for that. It's just, I think the national movement, again, is moving towards full-time from volunteers, and we just need to be out front in whatever support we can provide them to maintain that as long as possible, because that increase will be huge to go to an entirely full-time department, but it's heading that direction. It is going that way.
Can the township help you in any way try to get more volunteers? I mean, what resources could we help you?
The simple things, and I know the township's already been doing this, and Jim Doling's been a huge help. Getting information out on the website. We appreciate Commissioner Borowski, getting information out in our newsletter about the meeting tonight. Commissioner Clark does the same thing. I know I've seen Commissioner Abel do it. I think everybody else has kind of put little things out, but I think that constant messaging, a reminder, okay, Radnor Fire Company is fundraisers coming up, or they have breakfast Easter bunny, things like that. So I mean, it is nice. I mean, working Radnor's cool because you're right in the center of the town. You got a lot of foot traffic, a lot of visibility, which is great. But I think the more that the commissioners are kind of putting the word out that hey, we still have volunteers that are really helping this fire company go. They need our support. It's not fully funded by tax dollars, contrary to a lot of people think. Especially people that move in that haven't lived here. These are people who have been ingrained in this community for many years, get it. The two people in the back here, they get it. But as people have been in, a lot of them just don't understand how it's funded.
I had a question. Can you use junior volunteers? Can you use like Boy Scout, Girl Scout kind of?
Yeah, you can join when you're 16 years old as a junior firefighter or junior EMS. The only caveats with that, you're limited what you can do. So you can train up to, there's 4 modules. So you do 3 of the 4 modules before you're 18. Then you can finish your final basic fire training module, and then you can go fight fire inside. With EMS, you can do pretty much the only EMT course, but you can't be considered a primary care provider under the law until you're 18 years of age.
Should you reach out to those organizations?
Well, we're trying to, that's one thing with Damien, we're trying to do with Radnor High School, is partner with them. Berwyn Fire Company, not that I'm involved there, but they have probably one of the more successful programs with a high school and with volunteerism. So we're trying to get that linkage started with the high school, because a lot of people, you can get started at a young age, really stay engaged.
Stay with it,
Yeah. So that's one thing we're trying to work on. But Valley Forge Military Academy, we've done a lot more with them. And we have a few good volunteers we've gotten out there. We had 2 more people come in last week to interview, go through the clearance process and everything. So yeah, Valley Forge Military Academy, historically we've had pretty good success there. But trying to get something started with the high school would be even better.
Oh, sorry, one more thing, getting back to it. If Bryn Mawr has enough fire, and I guess you can't be like interchangeable, like where you could use a couple volunteers from Bryn Mawr over at Wayne or over at Radnor.
Well, it depends where the guys are. It's a lot of it's structured where you live and what's.
But if you were short, could you?
Well, we're already using them. So if you have like a higher, house fire dispatch, like today we get dispatched for a building fire at Sacred Heart. So we got called to assist them with a ladder truck. It ended up it wasn't anything. It was like a boiler malfunction or something. But we got called for a ladder truck to assist Bryn Mawr on that. So we're already doing that coordination together.
But would you ever have people from Bryn Mawr stay at the Radnor overnight or whatever shift, or you just don't do that?
I mean, the problem is then you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Okay.
Because a lot of what their operation, what they do is in Lower Marion Township.
Okay.
I get where you're going. That makes sense. I mean, there are. I'm not saying it's a non-starter, but it's not. It's just not that easy.
Okay, and I'm sure it isn't. I'm just trying to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So you're not short-staffed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any more questions?
Just one more. The station staff in March was significantly more than the other months. Why March? What was happening in March there, 2018?
It's a lot of it is just more volunteers were available. Could have been a fluke thing. Guys were on shift work. Guys took time off of work. There really is. I mean, some of the, If I could delve more, I could go through each individual call. So I'd look at the website, probably had 60 to 80 calls that month. Maybe look at some of the different people that may have been available or not compared to other months. But with a lot of it, there's really no rhyme or reason sometimes.
Anything else? So I just have one more thing. So do we give them, do you guys get a list of township residents when you said, I can't get past the fact that I still get solicitations for the people that owned my house literally 15 years ago. Their names are still on it. Like, does the township give them a list? Do we help them that way or collaborate for the annual fundraiser?
In the past,
the county.
Isn't it passed
It's
in-
the county. County has all the.
There's something with, what's the report with the real estate transactions?
Yeah.
I know the townships provided us that stuff before. Jim Kelly, our president, he worked for the Postal Service for many years, so he gets a lot of that, and then, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so I work in fundraising, I'm just wondering, like, if other people, if this is happening to me, I mean, for 15 years, if anyone else,
Yeah,
if it happens to anyone else, because people get it and they just pitch it.
The other phone calls I love to get, I usually get probably 30 to 40 a year, are the mess ups with the fund drive, and it seems that it's like always, no matter what we do, it always gets screwed up
Yeah,
with a
because
few of
when
them.
I'll send in the.
You send the
I'll
yeah,
off and
yeah.
it's-
We use an access program, so people do that. We appreciate you doing that. We'll then update our system, so when we go and run the report for the following year, it technically should be correct. If it's not, then do it again or bang on our door and yell at us. We'll fix it.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's like some sort of synergy with the township and they're getting right means and that kind of stuff,
So I know the last thing I was just asking for all the commissioners, I know that Commissioner Booker and Clark are involved in this. I know there's an election coming up, but whatever happens to the whole state race with the rep, whoever repping, if it's Alex again or next, whatever happens, if the township can help get them in the room again, we continue our dialogue on ambulance billing. Because I think the more municipalities of stature are out there pounding the pavement on that and working with the fire coming on the issue, the better. That's the only way we're going to solve it, is with your help. So I just appreciate you guys to help facilitate that, and during sometime during next year, and we're all in on that and working with you on it.
Great. Anything else?
All right, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks. All right. I think that's the end of my list. Is there anyone else who would say something? Sure, absolutely.
No. Wait till it costs you $20.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wait.
This is the budget request.
Oh. Bill, can we let the league speak
Make a budget
quickly?
request?
Yeah, go ahead, Roberta. I'm sorry.
Roberta Winters, I do not request anything for the League of Women Voters as an organization, but rather for the residents of Radnor Township who sometimes have an accessibility issue because many of our residents are, as you know, hearing impaired. It would really be nice if there was access to our meetings in a way that was captioned so that those who had hearing difficulties had access and could be involved more fully in civic events. And I believe it is a budget issue because there was a cost involved with providing that kind of service through our network and through our local access TV channels. And it really would make a difference, I believe, not only to those who are handicapped, but those of us who are perhaps losing our hearing over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Very good. Well, thank you. And thank you to all the groups that came out this evening. I think all the presentations were very informative, and we obviously have a lot of decisions to make. Mr. White, am I turning it over to you now?
Yeah, for the really exciting part of the meeting.
How much longer are we going?
This shouldn't take that much longer. The next couple budget items, well, let's start with A. It's a resolution asking the Board of Commissioners to adopt the Township Manager's recommended budget as the comprehensive budget. We do this every year at the end of October. It's merely to satisfy the statute, the charter requirement to have a budget on the books no less than 60 days before the end of the year. So it's not binding the board to the budget. We know it'll change. What you ultimately adopt at the end of, or introduce at the end of November will be different, but this satisfies the charter requirement. So it's merely a bookkeeping entry more than anything else. Okay.
Well, then I will go ahead and call for a motion to approve Resolution 2018-114, adopting the Township Manager's recommended budget as the comprehensive budget under 7.0, Section 7.06A2 of the Radnor Township Charter. May I have a motion?
A second, yeah.
Need a second.
Whatever, second.
Any commissioner comment on this?
It says 0%, doesn't it?
Correct.
Your recommended budget had 0% I saw
correct.
in there.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah.
Then I guess I can support it at this point.
Any additional comments? Any staff comment? Any public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to all those in favor of approving Resolution 2018-114, adopting the Township Manager's recommended budget as a comprehensive budget under Section 7.06A2 of the Radnor Township Charter. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Nagel absent. Item B.
All right, so the next three items really are linked together, and this is the legislative requirements to moving forward with borrowing the money as part of for the sanitary sewer program that we talked about earlier this year, and that was built into this year's budget. At the September meeting, the board authorized us to engage with PFM to solicit RFPs for a note. Members of PFM are here tonight. Dan, and flanking Dan is Madison. They worked on our behalf to go out and solicit these proposals. Dan will, as quickly as he can, step through the results of that. And then what we'll need after this is board direction. If you are in favor of the numbers as they came back in and who we're recommending to proceed with, moving forward with allowing us or introducing the bond or the note ordinance, which will then allow us to fill in the blanks. The blanks are the awarded or the bank that we're recommending in the terms that they proposed. We'll fill in those blanks and then we'll advertise ahead of the November 12th meeting for adoption. And then the other resolution really quickly it's a reimbursement resolution. It allows us to recoup costs already incurred and expensed and return that money back to the general fund. It's an Internal Revenue Code requirement to have the legislation on the books. So that was provided to us by Cozen O'Connor. That's, if you read the resolution, it's a non-binding resolution. We can recoup as much as we can for expenses paid within the last 60 days and everything incurred moving forward, and including the projects we want to fund with the money, a lot of which we have not incurred yet. So that resolution is pretty straightforward. And it, like I said, it just allows us to reimburse ourselves with the proceeds of the note as we've been discussing. So.
Yeah, but what hasn't been incurred yet?
Well, there's a handful of projects that we haven't expensed that we've had to transfer the money into the fund for because they're in various stages of engineering and planning and the like. I don't think we do. So Dan, I'll hit the buttons if you want. Sure.
Thank you, Bill. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Kozlov from PFM, Township's financial advisor. It's coming. And as Bill said, I'll step through this pretty quickly, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to interject. High-level overview of the financing. As Bill said, the Township intends to borrow approximately $4.5 million to fund capital projects throughout the Township. The Township staff communicated an interest to finance this with a direct loan for the projects in order to provide maximum flexibility on the borrowing and repayment terms of this money. The Township, as part of this, engaged PFM to serve as the independent financial advisor and Cozen O'Connor as bond counsel. And together with Cozen, we PFM worked with Bill and staff to develop and evaluate a request for a proposal or an RFP for bank loans. We also talked with Bill and considered a public bond sale as a financing strategy for the projects and reviewed some of the tax reforms that occurred at the end of last year and its impact on the markets. However, as was decided and advised, bank loans continue to provide the maximum prepayment flexibility for a financing that was of critical importance to the township on this. An overview of the request for proposal that was put out by the township here. Again, working with us, PFM, and Cozen O'Connor. The approximate borrowing amount was $4.545 million, which included project funds and also to pay for the cost of issuance of this. That would be bank qualified, tax exempt, so exempt from state and government and federal taxes, bank qualified for banks who would also get a tax benefit from it and therefore lower their borrowing rate. Principals extend our June 1s go from 2019 of June 1 of 2019 through 2028, 10-year term, with interest being paid semi-annually for that same term. An important point here is it's going to be prepayable at any time without penalty. So the day after township closes on this, should it choose to prepay it, which it wouldn't necessarily do, but if they wanted to, they could at any point in between when it closes and through the final term in 2028. We anticipate we're targeting a closing of December 14th of this year, and the security for the note would be the general obligation credit of the township, that is the full faith credit and taxing power of the township. Within the proposal, we gave the option for respondents, these are banks, local banks, state banks, national banks, to provide three different types of proposals. One was a fixed rate through maturity, so 10 years, one fixed rate. One was a full floating rate or variable rate for the entire 10 years, and then a hybrid in the middle where it would be fixed for the first 5 years and then floating thereafter. We sent the RFP to 12 different banks, as you can see on this tab, this page. 4 banks submitted proposals, and we will provide the responses here from those 4 banks, a summary of those responses, I should say. We received responses both for fixed and variable rate structures. We worked with Bill to analyze the all-in borrowing costs of these proposals, which included the underlying interest rate, as well as banks also had the ability to put in a maximum bank fee for entering this in. This covers their own costs of counsel and doing business and such. The fixed rate ranged from 3.25 to 4%. For the variable rate proposal, we calculated the all-in borrowing rate, assuming a reset that used the 15-year average on the floating rate, which would be based on LIBOR. The maximum issuance fee or bank fees that were proposed by respondents ranged from 0 to about $9,300 there. And other factors such as yield protection language, prepayment penalties, and the like were also considered in evaluating these proposals. The lowest all-in cost proposal, which also provided beneficial lending terms, including full prepayment flexibility, came from Republic Bank. They came in with a fixed rate of a 3.25 and an all-in rate of a 3.26. Their bank fees were quite low. From a debt service perspective, we structured this to create level debt service like you might have in your mortgage, where each year the payment is the same. You can see in column 4 here, the second from the right, that equates to approximately $560,000 per year. Important to note here that while it is a general obligation issuance of the township, it's intended that the debt service for this issuance will be funded by monies in the sanitary sewer fund. Lastly, in conclusion here, the township has options for financing the projects. It was concluded that the bank loan avenue was the most beneficial to the township in terms of providing prepayment flexibility. And based on the proposals received, the public bank provided the best terms, both from an all-in interest cost basis as well as closing fee basis when looked at all together. They had no detrimental loan conditions required as part of their financing proposal, and as I mentioned throughout, they provided full prepayment flexibility so that at any point in time, whether it's tomorrow, next year, 2 years, 9 years from now, the township can prepay these and take them out with cash or with another financing, the longer term financing, should it choose to do that. Happy to answer any questions.
I got a bunch.
Let me go first then. Why was it so important that we be able to pay it at any time when you had level debt service?
Because honestly, we are anticipating probably some sort of larger financing being required over the next couple of years to fund either additional storm or sanitary sewer projects, stormwater projects, general capital projects. And we wanted the flexibility to be able to roll whatever is remaining out of this obligation into that larger issue. So we want to have the ability to prepay, get rid of this, and then lock those terms up into the other bond deal.
Like the refunds we've done in the past? We've done a few of those.
Yeah, exactly. And typically those are 20-year bonds. It'll have a longer repayment period, a little bit lower interest rates, although we can't predict that.
The prepayment terms, is there any premium?
No. At par.
It's at par.
So they're callable. Then they're
callable at any time.
So they're
at
called.
par.
That's
so
my
you
question.
issue $4.45 million at par. You can prepay it tomorrow.
So we can call them, or if interest rates rise, you could go and you want to bring them in, you could go out on the open market and buy it for a discount. Is that
You
correct?
can do the same thing. You can't do it as a discount. It's
Why not?
callable at par.
No, but why can't we buy them if interest rates rise and these bonds go down, say 20%, they're trading at 80 cents on the dollar? Why are we not allowed to purchase these bonds and just retire them that way?
If the interest rates go up, we'd want to keep this out.
Maybe, but if you have money and you want to retire it, you could. I'm just asked. That's not the point.
This bond is a direct loan, so it's a private loan. It's not publicly traded like municipal security
So Republic
or
would
other
hold
type
it.
of security.
Republic
So
The
it's not
Republic
going into
Bank will hold
so it's
this.
not going into a secondary market.
No,
Do they have the
this
right
is-
to go into a second?
No, they will hold this through
So
maturity.
then they're going to hold it too until we.
Yeah, they're not going to syndicate it or put it in the public.
Okay, so then we don't need insurance on it because it's
No,
not.
and that's
okay.
part of the efficiency of these direct
Okay,
loans.
and then the last question is, this is dedicated sewer. I mean, the revenue, it's really, shouldn't this really be a revenue bond as opposed to a general obligation bond? I mean, this is money, we have a dedicated check we pay every year to sewer. You can't touch it. It's got to go strictly for sewer. Then we're saying it's a general obligation. I get that it's perceived it's a higher quality instrument if it's general versus revenue, but, and I mean, it's fine with me, but isn't that, and you're the guys that are going to pitch it, but it
No,
just seems to
we're
me
not.
that it should be, that it's more indicative of a revenue bond than a GO.
Yeah, we're not pitching it, to be clear. This is a solicitation by the township to issue debt with Republic Bank. We're assisting the township as an advisor. Cozen O'Connor, bond counsel, will be drafting the documents, working with Republic Bank's counsel. The way debt is paid and what the security is behind it can be two different things. Here, the security being general obligation, it's a better credit than the sewer revenue, lower rate. If the township chooses to pay it from the sewer fund, but provide full general obligation credit back into it, that's the choice the township can make, and everyone is fully aware of that.
Sure. So, sorry, one more question. So this 3.25% or 3.26%, is that in perpetuity, or if
It's for 10 years.
For 10 years only? Then we'd have to repay the loan. or
Yeah, the loan is
extend
going to
it.
be amortized over 10 years on a level debt service basis, if you could maybe.
And is it level?
So each year you're paying some
Is it
principal
level
amount
interest
down.
and principal each year, or is it?
It is in combination, in total, column
Right.
4 here, level principal.
But it's
and
amortizing like a
mortgage.
like a mortgage, so it's more interest at the beginning and
Yeah,
more
yeah.
principal at the
For
end.
my second line of credit. Is it possible to, and I'll ask Bill, so how much money, so what's the total amount that this loan would be for? I'm just curious.
That's the 4 million.
The 4 million,
545.
okay,
Well,
4.5.
yeah, the project fund amount is 4.5 million.
Okay. Now, because this is, I think this is an exceptionally low rate, would it be possible, and I don't know if you can do it, to say, see if we can get 7 or 8 million, just not use it, but if we do need it, when we look at, hey, we don't want to sell the sewers, we're going to have to fix them, or we have another expense, so we're not running to the market if we have a sewer breakage this winter, could we increase that 4.5 million to another amount for possible, basically to lock that rate in for possible future expenditures down the road?
Yeah, so what you're speaking to is part of the reason why we went with the bank loan and the flexibility of being able to roll this into another issue. So what we're anticipating is that we still know, we have those needs out there capital-wise. So we're anticipating another discussion about a larger borrowing deal. That's where we would capture that. And once we have a list of projects that the board has approved and green lights, it's much easier for us to go into the market then with a 20-year traditional municipal bond type of instrument. And then for the amounts that we need to do those projects. This was a little different in that we're getting this financing now just to try to put the fund back on solid ground, at least based on what's already happened. Going forward, we didn't want to be presumptuous and ask for a bunch of or money that we would need for projects that the board hasn't approved yet. So what we're doing here is just kind of catching us up. And then the next discussion will be, how are we going to fund these going forward? But the flexibility and the reason why we're going this route lends itself to a larger discussion that you're referring to.
Not that anyone can predict interest rates, but they do appear to be on the rise. At least that's been the trend for the past couple quarters. So you can't predict it, but I'm saying it may be prudent, it may not be, to lock a rate in, at least to have, more, to have that available if possible. If it's
so in terms of process and timing, I mean, if we have Dan that helps us out. We have Michael Wolf who helps us out and keeps an eye out there as well. If we see that rates are starting to aggressively rise, and again, if we have a list of projects that we need to fund, we can act, and we can act relatively quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time to pull these together. We've only been looking at this for a month and a half, and here we are with the documents ready to go. So it doesn't take long from go to close if we find ourselves in that position. And given our credit rating and how strong it is, and the fact that we do have capacity on the borrowing side, we can move quickly. I think the bigger holdup, at least it's been this way as long as I've been in Radnor, is agreeing on which projects we're going to fund.
I think that's what the conversation we want to have next year is with the board, is determine the policy. Are we just going to fix as they break, or are we going to be in a proactive measure and then invest into the system? So I think that will determine a lot of if we'll be doing annual borrowings for what breaks this year, because I know Steve, thanks to him, we got another 2.2 million coming on an emergency. But it's those things: do we fix as they break, or is the policy to invest in the system? Because the board's decided we're not selling, so we're going to maintain. So that's why we've asked for next year for the board to meet and come up with a policy. What do you want to do? That'll give them a whole lot better
just
idea of where we want to go.
One more follow-up to Bill. So with all this debt that we're accruing or looking, you said there's another $2 million down the road. How much are we retiring, and what is that doing to our debt rating?
Sure. Well, I'll answer the second part first. Is the township has a very strong rating. It was affirmed. Was that last year, 2018? So that's not going to move quickly.
Okay.
So we're in good shape there. In terms of what we pay down annually, our annual debt service is in the ballpark of $4 million. Just for simple terms, roughly half of that is paying down principal. The other half is interest. So, in any given year, we're paying down roughly $2 million.
Okay, but this is net neutral when it comes to our where it puts us in our debt rating going forward.
Sure, yeah, this won't have any impact on.
And this money is strictly for projects that we know we already need or that have already been done, then we have to pay back.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Are these any of the projects, include any of the ones this summer?
Rolls Run,
Is Rolls
Brook Road,
Skunk Hollow.
Skunk Hollows, Fort Cunning. We just had another emergency, another new one today.
That's not included in this.
Yeah.
Let's just be clear.
Where's that one? Where's that one?
Roberts Road.
But that does emphasize the importance for the resolution that's on the agenda tonight for the reimbursement resolution. Because we get that on the books now. If we decide at a later point that we do need to borrow for that, we'll be in good shape to reimburse ourselves.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, again, what's been, we haven't incurred yet, or we haven't built, what projects thought this was all money that was already spent? So
Yeah, let me pull it up. I've got a,
It's to pay back all the ones that we've already done.
But he just said that there's more that's not been.
yeah, so that's not real big, but, all right, so in the blue are different projects that, where we've already incurred these expenses, so we're at 2.1. The list in green are outstanding encumbrances or projects that we're in contract with to proceed, where the work hasn't been done yet, but we've obligated the funds. We need to have the funds in order to pay for them because we're letting projects. So we're at the 3.857 million between those two lists. And so
4.5 though is the number. So.
Yeah, I mean there's.
So Rolls Run emergency.
So there's extra stuff in there.
No, the Rolls Run emergency
is
at 592.
Sean Farley getting an extra nice birthday present?
I should explain. So the 592,000 for Rolls Run, that was for part of that project. We're wrapping that up now. The purchase order for that was close to $1 million, and that's where that project's going to come in at. Kirk's Run was just awarded.
Steve, I'm sorry, so that 592 number on the bottom there, that's going to become $1 million.
That's going to be 900 and some thousand dollars. The Skunk Hollow emergency, that was 106. Just got our estimate for actually doing the repair. It's going to be 2.2
Wait, but isn't Rolls Run already $1 million plus right there between the two entries?
Yeah, so he's saying there's another 400 grand that's going on there.
So the second one's 900. It's not 900.
1.5 total.
No, the total will be $1 million.
Yeah, so.
But it is $1 million right there.
Right.
Yeah, we've got Rolls running.
I'm sorry, my mistake. But
Okay.
Skunk Hollow emergency. So we're still in design. If the board approves that, we start construction next year. That's a $2 million project. The meter bridge is still in the design stage. Brook Road, that's going to be completed this week.
So this $4.5 million, is it all going to be drawn at the closing, or are you going to have it? Is it like you submit a letter whenever you need money?
Yeah, it'll be submit a letter as we need money, but we're anticipating drawing almost all of it within the first 6 months after closing.
Well, why wouldn't?
Sounds like
according to this, though, all right within the first 6 months.
I mean, these projects are
when
going.
When we close,
Yeah.
you're going to get 2.2 million, and then you'll still have some available. And as it comes in, you'll take it.
But we're still a month and a half away from closing, and we're going to incur a lot of these costs here. And then, as Steve's pointing out, with some of the construction on some of the projects, that'll be the first 6 months of next year.
It's possible that's not enough.
I was going to say, the math isn't adding up. We're still going to have a liability left.
If we can go to bid for the Skunk Hollow, that design, its estimated construction's at 2.2 million. So that would be just to start that next year, but we'll fund it completely.
And where does the money go? Is there a construction fund, or does it go straight into the general fund?
So
It will not go in the general fund.
Sewer fund.
It'll either end up in the sewer fund, or we'll create a sub-sewer fund just for construction.
In talking to Roger, we know the North Wayne sewer system's done, and we know the Midland Avenue sewer's done.
gonna
So
say,
those are coming at you, so.
And those aren't part of this.
They are not part of
No.
this.
What the board asked for in that evaluation, when I worked with Roger on a scope, we both determined that there was no sense in spending additional funds to determine the status and the condition of the North Wayne and South Wayne. It's 100-year-old vitrified clay pipe, well past its useful life, all are to be entertained for replacement.
So I guess I have to ask, what's the plan? Because the sewer, if we raise the sewer fee, that'll generate another recommendation's 10%, another 10%, like we did last year.
Yeah. Well,
So-
last year, the board approved 3 years of 10% increases.
No, that's right.
So
For this, if I remember correctly.
Well,
to basically do all this.
some of these other projects, what we still have to decide is how we want to proceed with funding those.
Yeah.
Do we want to use the cash generated from the fee? Do we want to borrow? Some combination of the two. So that's still in front of us as a decision, and I'm not sure that's necessarily one we need to have wrapped up by the end of November, but we should definitely have the discussion. And Rich, I want to just jump back to a point you made about the variance, the sum of these not equaling 4.5. If at the end of this, we only need 4, then we only draw down 4, and we only pay back 4. We're not committing to 4.5.
Okay, that was my question.
I don't think I answered it that clearly the first time, so I wanted to circle back.
So you only start paying interest as soon as you write a check, and it's just in there.
Yeah,
for
as soon as we
access.
draw down
So
money
that's-
from
It's
the
not
bank.
like so that's much more of an advantage in issuing a bond where you have the money and it may be a year or so before that project starts, and you have to pay interest on that.
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. Any other questions on this?
The only thing I was going to say was competitive bid for this note, but it's like you really did competitive bid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did it.
Put out the RFP and they say shut.
So I saw Benning and Scattergood was on there. So presumably the only fee we have, there's no underwrite, there's no, it seems like this is minimal fees, although there's a bank fee for $10,000 they want.
No, $2,500.
$2,500?
That 9,300 was with another proposal.
Oh, it was another proposal. $2,500.
Yes.
They're going to charge us $2,500 to lend us the money, but you said that's for their counsel. There's not a lot of time looking at the documents for $2,500, I guess.
It's a straightforward process.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Did you have a question? Did you have something?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any
I don't. The only thing is, I don't see why you're going to want to take this out, though. With, there's a new bond issuance. Chances are you're not going to want to take this out.
Well, we'll see where the interest rates are and what the terms of the larger issue is.
Pretty unlikely by the time we go out for a larger issue we'll want to take this out, though.
Well, as the debt service on this showed, it's at $550,000 a year. If we can roll that into a larger issue and that brings or spreads the amortization out over a longer period of time, then that $550,000 may drop to $250,000 or $270,000 a year, which frees up a little bit more capacity for whatever the new bonds are.
But you could do that today. You chose 10, right?
Well, we chose 10 because we were limited in term because we're doing a bank loan.
Because it's bank qualified.
Or bank loan.
Bank loan. It's not bank qualified. It's a bank loan.
It is bank qualified.
It is bank qualified, but this is a bank loan,
It's
right?
both.
Yeah, and they're not, banks are.
So the only reason, still, even with spreading it out, you're going to have more interest, and interest rates are going up.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the analysis we'll do when that time comes.
Yeah.
But between now and then, this is our instrument.
And why 10 years? Why not make it 5 or 7? Or 2.5?
Depends on, you know, the shorter you make it, the higher your annual payment is, right? It's like a balloon.
You want to extend it.
Right, but the lower the interest rate is too, and the less the interest.
Well, then, the higher the impact to the fee to pay for it.
Yeah, then you get.
So we're trying to make it balance all of that with the affordability. And the
Well,
fee.
why not make it 20 then and lower it to the minimum?
Because banks won't go out 20.
Okay. All right. So that's really so anticipating a bond issue, it'll be 20 or plus. You roll it in then, and to maximize it for the period that it's available under this structure.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better than issuing a bond, because you just pay as you go, essentially.
Well, the
it is a bond. It's the same.
I mean, the bond
No,
has a
it's not
5-year
bond.
call, so we'd be locked in for 5 years, and we wouldn't be able to do anything between now and then. And
It's a 10-year loan. That's what it
It's
is.
a 10-year loan, but it's not a bond. It's not.
It's a note. The bank's gonna hold the
Not a
note.
note.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a note. It's the same as a bond. It even says bonds in the documents.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Jay? Chad?
It is.
Let's move it along. So then I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion on approval of Resolution 2018-115, adopting a reimbursement resolution in conjunction with the sewer note proceedings. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, is there any additional commissioner comment on this?
No.
Is there any staff comment?
The only thing I would say is that if we don't do this, the rate is going to have to go up much higher next year, because you are returning these funds back to the general fund, so you would have to see a higher sanitary sewer rate go up. And then this doesn't decide the long-term picture, which the board has to decide. That's why next year will be a lot of discussion where you want to see this go. Pay as we break, or we go out.
Well, the other thing is, I just try to understand the analysis of why because Bill's designed this to be the minimum cost and the most flexibility, but so it might go up, interest rates could go down. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, but he's setting it up to do the best that he thinks is going to happen right now.
I'd rather see it borrow 30 million right now, and then we go up, and now we can start fixing the system the right way.
Yeah, but we don't know what we're going to,
But
we don't
that's
have it
exactly-
identified what we're going to spend it on.
Right.
I
can identify that for you.
You don't have a list of 30 million on it.
I have
one more. I just didn't carry it out in last year's budget.
I have one question for you. So you said that you can borrow the money if we need it for this project or that project. How long can we borrow money? I mean, could, the 9th year and 11th month, could we say, yeah, I want to borrow that money still at 3.25% extended for another 10 years? When's that cutoff period?
No, it's a 10-year loan.
It's a 10-year loan, but when's the last day that we can say, yeah, we want to borrow, draw?
That'll work through with the final documents. It's going to be, it's not going to be 10 years.
So
It'll be
like
shorter.
a year or 2
There will be
years?
something, it'll be
It's
shorter than
usually
10, but there.
2-3 years. Or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to pay that back in 7 years. It'd be amortized in
Well, it
7 years,
depends on when
or
you begin to
would
draw.
you extend it to 13?
You're not extending it. It's 10 years from,
So then if you're paying back principal, then it would be done on a 7-year schedule, not a 10-year schedule.
assuming that we don't make our first draw until year 3.
Yeah, if you borrowed I'm talking that if you borrowed some of the money the first day and then some of the money at the end of year 3, it would be on a 7-year repayment.
Well,
For the funds borrowed in year 3.
Yes.
But in any case, what we're aiming for is level debt service. So the principal and interest payments over that period of time will be as level as it can be.
But you don't know what your expense is.
All right.
Lisa, that's it.
Do you comments?
Yep,
but I
Because I'm going to go ahead and call for public comment now. So.
Oh, no. I was going to move, we adjourn.
No? Is there any public comment on this?
Just one very quick question. You can't hear me?
I'm sorry. I don't know if
That's
it's
fine.
it's
The microphones do pick it up.
I thought it did, but
the
that's.
camera
I'm sorry. All right.
The microphones in here pick up everything everybody says.
That's correct.
It's recorded, for years.
All the time.
Jane Galley, 7th Ward. I just have one very quick question for one of you two. Did I hear correctly that you said that the debt service will be paid out of the sewer fund?
Yes.
The fees that we pay?
Yes.
Is that where we normally do these kind of things?
Yes. If the money's used
So-
exclusively for sewer improvements,
The debt
source-
service can be taken out of there as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
In theory, it doesn't have to.
Any additional public comment?
Yeah, but that's what he said. That's why I said, what fund is it going to?
Okay.
He's going to put it in that.
All right. You two good?
You're going to have to separate them.
I know. Okay.
We're the only ones that understand that. What are they doing?
All right. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2018-115, adopting a reimbursement resolution in conjunction with the sewer note proceedings, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Don't you have to do a roll call vote?
I don't think this one's a roll call. Isn't the next one a roll call?
the next one's just to introduce the ordinance. It's not to adopt it. I don't think that when we introduce ordinances, we require a roll.
We're doing ordinance authorizing the issuance. Isn't that what this is?
This was on the
That's what
document.
this is.
Well, that's ultimately
we
what we're
adopt.
going to adopt
Okay.
November 12th.
All
Tonight,
right.
we're merely introducing it and allowing for the
Okay.
advertisement for November 12th.
Thank you for
All
the
right,
clarification.
plus we aren't even at that ordinance yet. So this was the resolution.
Okay.
So I saw 6-0 with Commissioner Nagel absent. On to ordinance 2018-14, introduction authorizing the incurrence of a non-electoral debt by the issuance of general obligation notes, series 2018, in the maximum aggregate amounts of approximately $4,545,000.
I'll move for its introduction.
Well, before we get started, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion. Part of the language says it appoints Cozen O'Connor as bond counsel, and my wife is an attorney with the company.
Thank you, Commissioner Abel. So I heard a motion from
So moved.
Commissioner Luke, or Commissioner Clark. Do I have a second?
So I think we'll call me that.
All right, a second from Commissioner Larkin, or Jack. Mr. White. That's it? We're
That-
good? This is pretty
that's what we- that's
we're done?
what we
It sounds like
spent-
this is memorializing
Yes.
the
So,
last hour.
in the draft you received in your packets, there are a number of blanks.
Right.
Those blanks relate back to the bank, the specifics of the loan that we'll fill in and then advertise Wednesday.
I was going to say, I'd much rather leave that in your hands than have us try to amend this thing tonight, so that sounds
Well,
great.
there's one thing to amend here. If the maximum aggregate amount is $4,545,000, it's not approximately.
Well, when we did the agenda last week, it was approximately, because we didn't have the results of the RFP yet. So the maximum aggregate amount will be $4,545,000. It may still say approximately, just to give us flexibility to go up to, but it won't be in excess of.
I think we're good.
But I'll let
If
Suzanne
the
Mays
agenda
will.
said, if the agenda said 500 grand and we're
Suzanne
here
Mays will
authorizing
button that right up.
4.5
In no
mil,
case will it be
I
larger
can
than
see an issue with that, but-
$4,545,000.
That's what it's got to say. You got to take out.
I will
Why
make
don't you
sure
have
that
John Rice look
Suzanne,
at it, and
when she,
then,
No, it's not. I mean, it's the bond council. If we, I don't know, where's Cozen? Get Jake back here. But yeah, I think it needs to say the amount is, or it's approximate. We're authorizing approximately, or the maximum is. It can't be both.
okay.
Or not to exceed.
Can't it just say not to exceed?
Authorizing?
Yeah, it says the maximum
Approximate.
aggregate amount is blank, not approximate.
All right, can't it just say not to exceed? Whatever.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
Can't do what I can't do.
There's enough.
Is there any
I
additional commissioner comment?
think I'm hearing a nay vote.
Here.
I think you guys got to fix it. I
All
don't-
right, can you change?
In the ordinance, in the ordinance that gets advertised, that will be fixed.
I think that what we have doesn't actually say approximately in the ordinance language, it just says it, I saw it in the.
It's,
All right, any additional commissioner comment? Any staff comment? Is there any public comment? All right, all those in favor of ordinance 2018-14, introduction authorizing incurrence of a non-electoral debt by the issuance of general obligation notes, Series 2018 in the maximum aggregate amount of approximately $4,545,000. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Rich, how did you vote?
He hasn't voted. He's still
Wait,
deciding.
I'm
He's
still deciding.
deciding.
I mean, look. I can't vote for it because it's either the maximum or it's, so I'm gonna vote nay. I can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Good.
All right, motion
Yep.
passes 4-1 with Commissioner Abel recusing himself and Commissioner Nagel absent.
We have one item if we could talk to you about.
Certainly.
All right, so that says the maximum aggregate, right?
That's the actual ordinance.
That's the word work right there, so.
That's it.
So strike approximate and I'm voting for it.
There is no approximate.
Okay,
It
all
says
right.
the maximum
We already
aggregate
voted and
principal
passed.
amount.
Let's move on.
All right.
All right.
You'll have another chance on November 12th.
We had the tub grinder, as you're aware, that had been destroyed. We have been going back and forth with the insurance carrier. They have agreed to fund a brand new tub grinder with.
That's the thing over at Stone College.
That's correct. And Bill, I'll let you just run the numbers real quick on that.
Yeah, so we've already priced out, we had 5 different options of replacement. The lowest and best option is a Grand Turk Duratec model for $629,967.80. That includes the machine and the shipping from, I believe, North Dakota. So insurance is going to cover all but our $1,000 deductible. So ultimately, at the end of the day, our cost to replace that unit is going to be $1,000. So we just received word today on that. So what we're looking for the board, if you guys would, is pass a motion authorizing us to proceed on the replacement of that unit at a maximum out-of-pocket expense of $1,000. And then,
Why do you need that? Bob can do it under
Yeah,
his.
I mean, it's under.
Just because it's at 629,000.
yeah, the abundance of caution.
It should be from the board, so you're aware.
So you're looking for us to authorize you to proceed with the replacement, less the $1,000 deductible, $1,000 deductible for the
Tub grinder.
Tub grinder. And that's to proceed with the purchase of.
We have to purchase it, and we get reimbursed from the insurance carrier.
Well, we'll submit the paperwork, the purchase paperwork to the insurance carrier, and hopefully the funds arrive at about the same time.
Gotcha, so because there might be a check coming out of the general fund for 629. Got it.
Exactly.
Understood. All right.
Okay. So, can I get a motion to approve authorizing the township to proceed with the purchase of the new tub grinder, less the $1,000 deductible? Is this right? Am I saying this correctly?
Net cost of the township of $1,000.
Thank you. Net cost of $1,000.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Any commissioner comment on this? Any staff comment?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add, and I think Steve McNellis has mentioned this in a couple board meetings, is the cost that we're incurring to get rid of the yard waste now. So the urgency is to get the unit back up and running there, because the cost, I forget the exact amount a month, but it's several thousand dollars a month. So getting this unit up and running again will ultimately save us money and get us back up and running again.
How soon will it be?
I forget the details on the delivery, but it's not
On shipping?
it's not long. It's the overnight.
Yeah, overnight.
UPS overnight.
Is there a cost to dispose of this tub grinder? And is that included in the insurance?
Our hope is we will either scrap it if we can.
And so we need this, I mean, because they're gonna need this with the leaf collection starting, what, this week?
Today.
Started today. So again, yeah, I mean, that's the urgency, that's why we asked for tonight to get the motions.
The leaves haven't even fallen yet.
I know.
There's a lot down.
So many streets.
There's a lot down, and we're a lot out at the curb already.
Yeah, a lot of my
Are they
neighbors.
using those clamps things again, they're gonna scrape up the streets?
Well,
Can you put like wheels on them or something so you don't scrape up the streets with them?
Alright, we
yeah,
digress.
so
We
what is
digress.
the cost going to be
Is
to
the-
remove it, or is there gonna be a net gain because we scrap it? I mean, what is,
Our hope is someone will buy it for scrap. That we don't have
and
to
then they'll
just-
remove it themselves?
That's
Yeah,
our hope.
it'll make a
That's
few
our hope.
bucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we gotta figure out now.
Yeah, but if no
Up
one
until now,
buys it,
it's
then it
been-
could be thousands to get rid of it.
No, it's metal, it'll be worth something.
Yeah, it'll have
Trust
value.
me, light iron is worth like not even 6 cents a pound, or 100 pounds or something. It's like 80 cents a 100 pounds.
Well, we have to get rid of it, so.
Sure, but it could be at a cost.
But we'll take the 80 cents per hundred. We'll chop it up and bring it to them.
It's expensive. It's expensive to do.
It doesn't cost us
All
anything to get it out.
Is there any other staff comment on this? Is there any public comment on this? All right. All those in favor of approving, authorizing the township to proceed with the purchase of the new tub grinder at a net cost of $1,000 to the township, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with Commissioner Nagel absent.
Thank you.
Anything else?
When we adjourn.
No. Is there any public comment? Any additional business? Sorry, I'm not getting yelled at because there's no last public comment.
Don't silence her.
I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the League of Women Voters for your flexibility in moving this meeting tonight to this venue so that the candidates from the 166th district had a very productive forum, which could be televised and heard across the 3 communities. So thank you again for your flexibility.
Thank you, Roberta. Thank you to the league for all you do. Any other public comment? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, Bob, Steve.